Yep. Okay, call this work session to order. Wednesday, June 19th. First order of business is a swearing in of new officer. So let's have Adam come on up here. Come on over here and we'll get the mics to kind of pick us up. Okay, I'm going to have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Adam S. Rathke,
I, Adam S. Rathke,
being duly sworn, depose and say that I will support.
repeat that, sir.
Depose and say that I will support
Depose and say that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
the Constitution of the State of Oregon,
the Municipal Code of St. Helens,
Municipal Code of St. Helens,
and the laws therefore,
and the laws therefore,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties
of police officers for the City of St. Helens,
of the police officer for the City of St. Helens,
Oregon,
Oregon,
to the best of my ability and understanding
to the best of my ability and understanding
during my term of office.
during my term of office.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you, sir.
Luckily, I don't have to pin on his badge. The last guy stuck it right through his uniform. I didn't realize there was a little spot for it. Welcome. You have some family here today?
I do. My wife and children are over there.
Nice to meet you. Yep. Yep. Yeah.
Good point, sir.
Okay. So we're going to open it up for visitor comments now. That'd be you, Doug. Yep. I'll even give you more than 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
6.5 maybe.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, it's great to see everyone.
Could you state your name, please?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Name is Douglas Hayes. I'm the Executive Director of the Port of Columbia County. And I'm here today to essentially give you a roll-up, a summary of everything that's happening with the port as it relates to St. Helens. I understand recently, and my apologies for not always getting here, but as you can imagine, I'm been pretty busy lately. And I certainly understand that, a lot of press has been given to Port Westward and things that are happening in Port Westward. There's a lot of press happening as it relates to OMIC and the airport, certainly. And I understand that sometimes folks may feel like, well, what's happening in St. Helens? So I'm here to let you know things are happening in St. Helens, although they may not garner as much press as you may want. So essentially what I want to do here is just give you a roll-up, give you some numbers, and let you know what we're working on, and some of the challenge that we're also running into. So with your permission, currently, the companies that are port tenants or subtenants in the city of St. Helens are Composites Universal Group, Even Construction, Kinnear Specialties, McFarland Cascades, Noise Thai Kitchen, Orpet, Pelham Cunning, Rain Shadow Labs, Riverside Training Center, and U.S. Pipe Fabrication. Now, what that totals is approximately $91,000 in property taxes for the city, and employs over 300 people, and it has a payroll of approximately $11 million a year, okay, with those companies. Now, if you add Pacific Stainless, was the port sold property to ensure that they did come here to St. Helens, that's another 150 jobs. So things are certainly happening. Now, moving forward, I am in talks with some folks, but probably the people I am talking to most often lately is Perry Technical Institute. Perry Technical Institute is a trade school currently located in Washington State. I've reached out to them. I've had a conversation with them. I've visited them. They are very interested in developing a satellite campus here in this county. Now, I'm certainly trying to persuade them to come to St. Helens, specifically McNulty. Now, this is ongoing, and we're continuing to talk. But at McNulty, we're in the process of building a business park, which could certainly move into a educational campus, all right, designed for a trade school. Certainly early in the process, but something I would certainly invite the city to help me recruit to come here, because I think something like that would be beneficial to the city and to the county in general. Now, there are some challenges that we do run into, and certainly John and I have had great conversations about this in the past, and I think it's things that we can work through. But to be clear, there's some things that are what I call 50-meter targets, things that have to be done rather quickly. For instance, Building E for Composites Universal Group. It's a building that was approved by the state and the port was granted $1.2 million in order to get this done. Now, the state did come back to the port at a very late hour and said they needed some additional information, which we were able to get. But we have been talking since February. We are in the process of trying to get everything settled, but there is a lot line adjustment that we've been in talks with the city that we've got to get done soon. Because if we don't get this done by September, we will lose the $1.2 million grant that we were going after, all right, which is significant. Because I certainly don't want to have to pay that out of port general funds, because that will then hamper what we try to do as a port. For the most part, though, we were able to work through a lot of these things. And, you know, subject to any questions you may have, I'm certainly willing to answer. With me here today, and I apologize for not introducing him earlier, is Scott Jensen, is my planner at the port. So with that being said, and John's looking at me like, okay, I got questions. But nope. Okay.
Yeah, I have one. Go ahead.
For the record, I did see something, I do follow your page, about some control burns. Is that prepping for your building?
That's unrelated.
Unrelated, but
They're just taking advantage of the space.
okay, I just thought that you're doing that, and that is this weekend, pending weather? Is that what that was?
Yeah, I think it was this weekend,
Okay.
pending the weather. Yeah.
I just thought media's here, we're having a meeting, that's still all
Sure.
part of port. You guys are doing lots of things.
Mhm.
You know, we experienced that too with our own industrial property, is just because you have property doesn't mean it's ready to be habitable.
Right.
Super.
So my understanding, you need a property line adjustment soon. Is that correct?
The sooner the better, because
have a
certainly we got to get this back to the state.
Scott, do you happen to have a site-based survey map by chance, so that, you know, we could have it in front of us to see what that adjustment would be?
I didn't bring that with me. I can certainly get that to you. And we certainly have been discussing the actual survey maps with city staff.
Oh, good. Okay, so if the council had that in front of them now, to expedite, we could make a decision soon. I mean, even today, or by this
That'd be
evening.
great.
So those things, in terms of preparation, I think will be important. So, yeah,
Certainly do that. Yep.
I'm certainly open to it.
Yeah, and then I think, is it across from Pacific Stainless, that the proposed site? Because I think we had some flexibility on that site. You guys
No,
came to us.
This is Multnomah.
The Multnomah
Multnomah,
site,
okay.
literally, we have to create an island in the middle of the Multnomah site. That's a separate parcel.
Are there wetland issues down there?
No,
They're all taken care of. Perfect.
that area is fully developed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we really can't build any more at Multnomah. We've about done that. So
Yeah. Okay.
Jacob appeared in the hall. Just as FYI, we were asking questions about your lot line, and Jacob appeared
Jacob, would you like to come sit down for a minute and give us maybe a little bit of your insight too, as far as the lot line adjustment in the middle of the Multnomah Park?
Yeah, it's a lot line adjustment that's going to require a variance
Okay.
because it's a really funky shape.
Yep.
The port, my understanding, is kind of on the negative end of the stick as far as funding, which resulted in an area which was only supposed to be for a lease, in which we don't get too excited about the lines, but I guess it has to be a parcel, and it's a very unusual dimension and shape. In fact, it cuts diagonally through parking stalls, and it's not something that we would normally look favorably on, as any ethical planner wouldn't look favorably on it. And so we've had pretty thorough conversations about it, and we kind of have a path forward, which is going to be the lot line adjustment and a variance.
So what month will it be on the agenda? Do we know?
We haven't received an application to date.
Oh.
So, until we receive an application, it's hard to
Can't put it on the
say.
agenda.
We've had discussions.
But is that something that will go to planning commission?
Yeah, variances go to the planning commission, yeah.
And as those things move forward, could we, is there any way the council could request to expedite that and move it to the top of the list for the planning commission?
We could do what we can to work on it ahead of other things.
Yes.
But other than that, the planning commission meets when they meet, and we have our legal notices that we're obligated to meet. And the one thing we don't control is when we get the application. We have been discussing this for weeks and weeks. So, as soon as we get it, we'll try to rock and roll as well we can.
Well, I could guarantee you this, you'll have it before the next meeting.
Because we don't meet for a month from now. We don't. But
Yeah, it's not an issue that has to become for you. I think they're just trying to inform you of what's happening
Yeah.
in St. Helens.
That's all.
okay.
Super.
Yeah, so just why I had CSAT here and Pat Trapp, I just figured it was a good time to ask some questions because a lot of the public doesn't understand what's going on. Yeah, we get to see you guys quite often because we're elected officials. But I just had both the economic drivers here in our community, and I needed to ask some questions.
No, sir, I
Right?
understand that. And I will tell you, and I'm very encouraged by what the talks that we're having with Perry Technical, and this may be a conversation we're going to wind up having a lot more of if everything moves positively in that direction. So,
Sure.
so certainly more to follow on that.
Well, and I know that we also have properties that kind of abut each other too that are going to be difficult down the road to develop. So I think when that starts happening, because we have been looking into it, and we went ahead and had our wetlands delineated. You guys might want to get on that too. It's not probably a whole lot of money. I'm not sure though. I can't speak on. I just know we
Certainly depends on the size and location, sir.
Sure, but that would be the first step in trying to get that other side, and being solid rock. If we could find a developer that's willing to tackle,
Yeah.
we need to work on those chunks of property.
Well, this is one we don't want to fall through the cracks because this involves education, it involves training, and it, for the most part, is a vision into our future. So I'd hate to see it get hung up on any kind of formalities. I'd like to see this happen.
Just some food for thought too. That we're actually still pursuing the landfill of our lagoon,
I have read that.
and we do know that you guys have some remediation that needs to be done. So is that something that you guys would be interested in talking with us in the future about? It's all about funding.
No, certainly, and I know John and I have had conversations about certainly those sites, and
We
we'll
want to look at
continue.
we want to remediate all the areas in St. Helens, personally, as a council. I know that for a fact.
Okay.
Not just your site,
Sure.
battery plant, Armstrong, our site, the mill itself. So,
Okay.
yep.
I am so willing to work with the city, absolutely, everything.
On your technical school, have you had any conversations with the school system here, Scott?
So during the course of my talks with Perry, they did send me a list of questions, essentially a survey. All right, just try to see how they will shape that type of satellite campus. Now I shared that with OMEC, but also all the superintendents within the county.
Good.
And I gathered that information up, I compiled it, and we sent it back to Perry about a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. So the next step in the process is that they are going to come out to visit us, and I'm still waiting on the date when we're going to do that.
Because,
But I have talked with superintendents. Yes.
okay, because they're trying to get a technical program going here. And so the question was there any contact made? Obviously, the answer is now yes.
Yes, sir.
I think if we could get them on board to help push it, it would help.
Well, I will say that all the superintendents that I talked to were very enthusiastic about it. So, and for the for the record, this is not because of what's happening with PCC. I just want to put that out there. Okay, this is outside of that. Okay.
This is not a replacement.
No.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, I appreciate you guys showing up here today.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you,
and
Council.
We know that we're always welcome. You know, it'd be nice we only, have the county dinners, and it'd be nice to continue to have this dialect officially, unofficially, more often. So.
Absolutely. I'll be at 13 nights on Thursday.
All right.
Why not? So,
Sounds good, Doug.
all right. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, other visitor comments. Okay, we're gonna go to length of service awards, and I'm gonna start off with Paul. How do you say your last name?
Curtis.
Gerdes. Because the other two guys aren't here, but Paul Gerdes has a 20 years continuous public service to the city of St. Helens, Oregon. Paul, come on up.
Don't forget he's our arborist.
He's our arborist, and he also is our pesticides. A lot of other things. Yep, a lot of different certs.
Way to go, Paul.
Yep. Okay, so we have Keith Ciernak has 25 years of continuous public service. He is one of our mechanics. And then we have our second in command of operations, Buck Tupper, 10 years of continuous public service to the city of St. Helens. Congratulations, gentlemen. Okay, we want to pass those over to Kathy.
They're hard at work right now.
Yep. Yes, they are. It's nice with Paul to show up, though. Okay. Municipal broadband presentation. We're way ahead of schedule. Do we have, is Dan supposed to be showing up for that? Okay.
No, this is a virtual presentation with the consultant that did the feasibility study. They're in Minneapolis, I believe, but so it'll be walking through all the
Yeah.
It's very technical, but I think they break it down pretty well too. So.
Welcome to WebEx. Enter your access code or meeting number followed by pound.
Those guys over there might have some questions as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not criticizing you, I'm just saying, I just saw Sue wanting to ask something, I think. It was kind of.
Enter your attendee ID number followed by pound.
Sorry, the number you have dialed has been disconnected. Glenn, this is Mayor Scholl. Can you hear me?
Glenn, can you hear us?
Sounds like Glenn just hung.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Glenn. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
And we can see your screen. Well, now we can.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get to the right place here.
Still there, Glenn?
Yes, I am here.
We're
How
still,
are we looking and how's our timing?
we're just waiting for you. We're ready to go. We're all live.
Oh yeah, we're live right now. We are ahead of schedule, Glenn.
Okay, that's good. Let me just send off a quick note to Chris.
Okay.
Chris is going to be a little bit late. He couldn't quite make this time exactly.
Should, something we should come back to you on?
Estimating he'll be here in about 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
So how's my audio quality?
Good.
It's
Okay, and give me a sense for the audience so I'll know how technical I can get.
You can get us.
Not too technical.
Okay. All right, and am I doing my own preamble here, or
Yes.
John, do you want to explain what we're doing here?
I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Start with
All right, so we were requested to do what we call a quick start study, which we think of as a baseline analysis on the feasibility financially and technically for putting broadband into the city of St. Helens. And the objectives that we understood, where we were given a design area where this becomes the area of interest for the community. And we were basically going to try to figure out what are the more cost-effective approaches and different types of network configurations. And when we talk about that, we're talking about at one extreme, everything is a fixed wireless or radio internet. At the other extreme, everything is fiber to the home. And in between, we look at some intermediate mixes of both radio and fiber to the home. Fiber to the home is the best scenario. It's also the most expensive. Typical fiber connection to a home can easily deliver a gigabit per second upload and download. A fixed wireless or radio link, you can get up to about 100 megabits, which is good, but we constrain this to be a concept we would not get worse than 25 megabits in this design approach. So that gives a decent quality of internet with either approach. Now, from a community finance point of view, there's also a very different life expectancy for the two products. A fiber network has a depreciation life of 22 and a half years. It's not going to break very easily. A radio or fixed wireless solution has a depreciation life of about 5 years. It becomes obsolete, but it's also much less expensive to deploy. So when we talk about options that are here, we think in terms of what we call a hybrid network, which is a mixture of both fiber and fixed wireless, which makes it affordable. And then with the modeling that we do, we try to show how that can be expanded out in future years so that eventually the radio is all gone Everybody's got fiber, but you were able to pay for it, although not necessarily all at the beginning. So the final product that we produced is a web page that we created for you. And I don't know what your internal sharing policy is, but this is intended to be accessible by whomever you want to see it. That's citizens, potential deployment contractors, anybody who does a more in-depth engineering study after us. This is available to whomever you think is appropriate. So the various tabs that you see here contain content that is either going to display as a new page or download a file document. So for example, the project overview is a Word document that downloads. And in this document, what we do is we outline content of what we were doing and how we did it. So we start off with a baseline. We don't know where you live, you do, but we have to confirm that we're studying the correct area. So this is the area that we studied. We constrained a study to only households or block groups, census block groups, had at least one household or more. And we basically...
That looks like Scappoose to me.
Go ahead.
That looks like Scappoose.
No, it's.
I'm just joking.
Yeah. but it is the city limit, broader than the city limit. It's urban growth boundaries included in that. Just
yeah, the first thing we did was we had about a week of going back and forth to make sure we know the area that we're going to be talking about. And we finally, I think, zeroed in and settled, and this is the area we came up with. We'll be seeing this area over and over and over again. You folks probably live it, and I only get to study it. All right, and then the other thing we point out is that this is not just a project undertaken by my company, which is Neo Partners LLC. It's also undertaken by Community Broadband Networks, which is a initiative at the nonprofit Institute for Local Self-Reliance. They've been doing support for community broadband for at least 10 years, and they're very, very active in giving support. So we show you essentially who we are, and you can take a further look at us. So we did not exclude any existing ISP coverages that you currently have, but I'll show you what those are. And we assume that you have all the money in the world, so we didn't put any budget constraints on it. Then we talk a little bit. It's going to be affordable. I think you guys are in a pretty good position if you want to move forward with this. So we describe how we do the cost modeling. And then we talk about some of the local content of the people that we think would be good folks in your region to work with. In particular, we recommended Step House Networks and Columbia River PUD as places where you can get additional resources in moving forward. Then we talk about, raw data. So if anybody wants to really dive deeply into this, then there's that information. And then last but not least, we tell you how to read our maps. We provided a bunch of maps for you, and not everybody knows how to read a map or how to navigate a map. So we've got basic information about that. And then since there currently is an active federal grant program in the works, we did an analysis of what points are available to you if you were to apply for a USDA grant. And the basics on that would go that you're probably not going to get enough points to get a USDA grant. You're not rural enough. You have 3 out of 15 possible points for critical community facilities. You've got 9 out of 15 for educational, 9 out of 15 for healthcare centers. You've got I don't know how many farms you have, but in your 6 square miles, I don't think you've got very many. And you don't have any tribal lands. But it doesn't take anything to take a look at that, and I'll show you that in a moment as well. All right, so this is kind of like what we were doing, kind of how we were doing it. So the first thing we look at is what is your current status as a community in terms of, I push the right button. What is your current status in terms of internet services available to you today? And there's a couple of ways of looking at this. And John, we updated this map recently because we have more information. So if you haven't looked at it in a while, it's got other things that you might want to know about. So first of all, when we look at the community, the FCC tells us that the providers you have are CenturyLink, Comcast, 3 satellite providers and Step House Networks. And Comcast is everywhere. They're pervasive, like Chicken Man, I guess. Comcast and CenturyLink claim to be providing really good services throughout your community. And then Step House Networks, which is the one that we think is the local provider you should be at least talking to, is beginning to enter your territory. Now, on this basis, you are a well-covered community and you don't need your own broadband. But one of the things that we also have is we have a year's worth of speed test data from what's called MLab, which is a Google-subsidized nonprofit consortium of people who collect data. And what that data shows for the last year for your community is that you do have decent performance from Comcast, you have so-so performance from CenturyLink, and you really don't have much else, except for a couple of commercial enterprises like your educational service district and a company in town called X5 Solutions. I don't know who they are. And so what you have basically is you've got a Comcast monopoly for any quality service, and then you got CenturyLink for anybody else. So this is indicative of a community that can be serviced but may not be particularly happy with the service provider and would be considering an alternative. So once we have an idea of that, the first question we ask is, okay, if you do this, you realize Comcast isn't going to be happy with you. That's the number one message that comes out of this type of element here. On the other hand, if you start doing this, Comcast may suddenly become a better provider. An example we have in Minnesota is a community that built their own network, and all of a sudden the local ISPs cut their prices in half and doubled their performance. Community never finished the network, but they got what they wanted, which is better quality, lower price services. So there are many strategies you have to think about as you move forward. Like, do you really want to do the network, or you want to say you're going to do the network, and so on and so forth. But clearly, in a case like this, Comcast is not going to be your best friend. So that's something that you have to think about as you move forward. So another thing that we take a look at is available fiber in your region. And you have, you've got public domain available fiber from a company called Zayo Group. Zayo is a fiber lease consolidator, and they will sell access to anybody and usually at a decent price. So they're right across the river from you, and I believe there's a bridge point somewhere in here. In any event, they'd be pleased as punch to give you the backhaul out so that you can connect the community. So this is probably your best choice. Zayo is one of two multinational providers of fiber to private networks. And they're Windstream and Zayo, and they compete with each other, and they usually overlap with each other. And they are not robber barons or anything like that, but they'll charge a fairly decent price depending upon what the bandwidth requirements you're going to settle on will be. So we know you can get backhaul fiber, meaning you can get your own network onto the internet. And that's a key thing that we need to know. So then we started going through different types of designs. And we'll give you sort of two extremes. The pure fixed wireless design says we're going to put, let's see, how many towers is that? A number of towers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 towers into the community. And you're going to cover essentially everyone with fixed wireless. So that means that you would have, you'd have to argue about people putting 80-foot telephone poles in the backyards of 7 or 8 individuals. And then everyone who wanted the internet service would have to have installed a $100 device manufactured either by Ubiquiti or Mimosa or Redline, and then point it to the nearest tower, and then they'd be effectively on the network. This is the least expensive solution for a community like yours. You're very compact, you're very flat, and relatively, except for some hills out of here. All right, and we can take a look at any particular address in here to see what the availability is. Now, there is a small region out here that we cannot really cover terribly well, but you don't have a lot of folks living out there either. All right, now, another way we looked at it was a hybrid design. Hybrid design is a mixture of fiber and fixed wireless. So in a case like that, what we do is we have the tower count drops because a lot of people are going to have fiber, And what you see here is the areas that are covered exclusively by fiber. There's none of those areas that are covered by either fixed wireless or fiber, and those are the purple ones, and the ones that are only covered by fixed wireless. So that gives you a good compromise solution. So what we did was we looked at actually, I believe it was 8 different versions, and we came up with basically a summary of the types of projects that are possible in your area. If I can make this thing readable, my spreadsheet's way too big. There we go. All right, so what we looked at was the concept of a pure fixed wireless model all the way up to 100% fiber. And what we were seeing was in terms of the project costs, you have the costs of the wireless equipment, which is basically here, the cost of the home installation equipment, which is essentially here. And then if you have to have some sort of backhaul connection to each of the towers. So we have that buried out somewhere here. And then we have, as we go down the table here, we have more fiber and less fixed wireless, and the costs on the fiber go along down here. So what we're looking at is a project cost range of about between 1.7 and what is that number? 6.6 million. And as a community, you have to figure out how much do you want to bite off? How much can you afford? How much risk can you take? And whether or not this is going to be your best choice among these models. Now, looking at this from the point of view of how much of the population has fiber, each model has its incremental addition to bringing fiber. This is where you ultimately want to get, but you may not be able to start there. And then there's a cost per household for these networks, and you can see the more fiber you have, the higher the cost per household. And then if you were an ISP, which you are not, but if you were an ISP, your internal rate of return over 10 years starts off pretty darn good at fixed wireless and then starts dropping like a rock, which is why you don't have multiple providers in your area. So this gives you a perspective as to why there isn't competition out there, because it's really hard for an ISP to make money doing that. So we recommended in your environment that we probably should be thinking in terms of about a $5 million cost, which would be essentially Model 3. And that would be probably your most cost-effective solution. If you can go for the whole boat, well, then go for the whole boat. But as a good compromise, that's one to start thinking about. And as you go through the process of discussing this with your community, you may find advantages going up or down the scale. But this is where we think you should start the discussion. All right, so one of the other things that we did is we did some financial analyses, and we summarized them in a PDF file. I'm going to bring up the live one because it's a little bit more dynamic. Although I don't know if there's any financial gurus in the room. If there are, they're going to like this part. If you don't like finance, then you're just going to go to sleep in a heartbeat. But what we did here is we took these same models and we looked at it from the point of view of municipal finance, meaning you're going to take out a loan in the form of a municipal bond. And the question is, can you get away with that? So we had these various models here, and we focused on what we called the C3 model project, which has a net project system cost of about $3.7 million there. There's other costs that go into that. And then we took a look at, okay, what's the cash flow look like in a scenario like this? The net project comes in, we'll start it off, you don't get a grant. We're taking away your grant money, just to get this thing in context. So the net project total, with all the financing costs that go along with bonding and stuff, comes in at about $4.1 million. Now, the key audiences for this type of approach is, first of all, the people who buy the bond expect you to pay it back. So they want to see what's called a good debt service ratio, that you have more money coming in than you owe them. So you want that number to be greater than 1, and we're starting off, it's about 4 to 1. So that's good for them. That means that they'll buy the bond. Now, the other thing you have to worry about is that your citizens are going to get a tax hit. This is going to be like a 20-year bond, and they're going to have to pay taxes because you decided to build this network. So we start off here in this model that they're going to have a $4.23 per month tax increase to do this. And then since you're not going to be the ISP in this model, you're going to own the network, but you're not going to operate it. You have to have some bait to have an ISP come in there. And for them, they want to see a nice internal rate of return. So we're starting off with a 5-year internal rate of return of 143%. Every business loves a number like that. But that may not be good for the community overall, because in order to achieve that, we're going to have a $62.50 per month net internet access fee. And that may not be very competitive with Comcast or Charter. So what we do with a model like this is we just start playing with the numbers and seeing if we can still keep people happy. So we're going to drop $20 a month off of that. So the net citizen cost is now $37.50 a month. That's attractive. And since a lot of this is fiber, you're giving out gigabit fiber connections to a lot of people for under $40 a month. That's good. But on the other hand, the profit to the ISP just dropped, and so did your debt service ratio. The key thing to worry about here right now is the ISP, because if you don't get an ISP, you don't have a service. So we dropped the rates we charge them. Now they're coming back up to 100%. Your debt service ratio was still good. Your citizen tax liability is pretty low. The ISP is there. You're delivering broadband for under $40 a month for anybody who signs up. So then the question would be, how many people are going to sign up? You've already got Comcast and Charter there. It's not clear if you could get a very high uptake rate unless you drop prices further. So 30% is probably what you would be able to expect. But if you drop, say, another $10 a month off, you're not going to make it. Your debt service ratio just doesn't fly. So we bring this back up.
Hey, Glenn.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Chris Mitchell. I've been on for a while. Just wanted to let you know I was here. And also, at the risk of throwing too many numbers at people, I think the goal of what you're showing is just that you can run a lot of different scenarios to get a sense of under which scenarios you're doing well and under what scenarios you're in trouble. And that's the real value of this.
Okay.
To,
so the key point here then is, yes, as you're pointing out, correct, Chris, that there's a lot of options you have, but here's the base information you need to start. All right, so we'll skip out of the financial model. Even Chris is going blank on that one. I know I've passed my limit. And then for other elements here, we have community education materials here. For those of you who don't know what broadband is, there's a link here, and you can print that out and read it at your leisure. Or what is wireless, the fixed wireless stuff I was talking about, and then what is this fiber to the home stuff. So basic community information content that you can distribute as you go through the community discussions on this. And then for the real geeks, and hopefully there's one or more in the room there, we've got a whole bunch of technical material where we talk about some of the details of exactly what we're doing when we're doing a study like this. And most of this is download content. But for example, we tell you where we got the data, and then we actually go and tell you exactly how we calculate, which is really exciting for people like me, and give you some of the assumptions that we made, how we did our cost calculations, and the types of modeling that we ran through to get to that point. So this would probably be more interesting to somebody who's actually going to build the network, but it's there for them if you get to that point, and it's a good starting point for them. It's going to keep them from doing the work all over again. And then, for example, we took a look at some of the fiber connectivity that would be required in the hybrid model we recommended, and we're showing that you would need to run about 4.9 miles of fiber to connect these towers for a hybrid model. So this is, again, a bunch of technical stuff that is there if you move forward, and it's good to have it, and probably you don't want to read it. And then we get into the basic concept of what do we think you should do? And to that end, I'm going to turn this over to Chris.
Thank you, Glenn, and I apologize to everyone. I had a classic issue of 2 meetings that couldn't be moved. I am the Director of Community Broadband Networks for Institute for Local Self-Reliance, and as I'm sure Glenn explained at the beginning, I've been working with Glenn for a year or more now to basically do these sorts of analyses and help communities analyze their options. So one of the things that we've seen is that for communities that as Glenn said, aren't able to just go in and collect the money that they need immediately, whether that's through a bond or some other mechanism, we strongly encourage communities to recognize that there are a variety of options between doing nothing and the, I want to say, $7 million plus option that Glenn identified as a way of getting fiber out to everyone in the course of probably about a year of construction in a city of your size. And one of the things that we recommend is looking at what we call self-funding. And this would be where the first step would be to take a look at, and some of you may know this off the top of your head, but taking a look at the approaches as to how, taking a look at how your existing municipal facilities are funded. Whether that is library, schools, city hall, public safety, potentially water utility type systems, anywhere in which you currently have or in the near future may need to have connectivity, are you paying someone else to do that? Is that cost effective, or would it be more cost effective to do it yourself? Because if you find it would be more cost effective to do it yourself, in the course of building that network, you can put in a lot of extra fiber and route it in ways that would make serving local businesses and potentially residents much lower cost for subsequent phases. And this is something we've seen a lot of communities do across the United States because, frankly, a community like St. Helens, you are probably the single biggest telecommunications expense in the community. You probably, the city of St. Helens with its various subdivisions probably spends more on telecom than any other single actor in St. Helens. And the question is whether that's getting you closer to your goal of making sure everyone's connected or if it's unrelated. So we definitely encourage you to look at those sorts of models. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean you would become an ISP. It may just mean that you build a network that you are then able to lease to a trusted partner, which may be an independent company. If I remember correctly, there's a company or two in the area, but then you also have the possibility of working with other local governments to do that, because as we know, Hillsborough, Sandy, perhaps others soon are already have this capacity to do that sort of thing. So, Glenn, you have the phase construction doc up. I was actually starting to go into the other one, but I will quickly run through this one. So what I was just discussing was the first step of that, but the next phase of phase construction would often be basically figuring out how to serve local businesses or residents, whether that is trying to go to all of the ones that we've identified. I believe there's roughly 80% that could get fiber to the home under the $5 million model, or a subsection of those. You can do something using a platform like CrowdFiber or like service zones, in which you would have the neighborhoods rally, which is a term of art that basically means, if you're not familiar with these, that they would sign up for fiber. And you have a sense of, well, okay, this neighborhood has a tremendous demand and a lot of enthusiasm, whereas these other two neighborhoods don't have as much enthusiasm. So if we have limited resources, we should go to this neighborhood first. I'm sure that you, as local leaders, will know that you have to also balance that with issues of equity, making sure that it's not just a matter of the people who have the most means getting it first, and there's various ways of balancing that we could talk about if that's useful. But those are that's sort of the phase construction model, where often you start with a certain customer, which is yourself, or perhaps some local businesses that are very enthusiastic, and then you expand opportunistically, and then you create revenues, you demonstrate competence, and then you can either expand slowly with those revenues, or you'll find that you have increased borrowing capacity once you have demonstrated to potential funders that you are competent at this particular model. And that is more or less the phased construction type approach. It's one that I feel like too many people are not immediately familiar with, because they tend to think of this as either doing nothing, or doing it all at once. But
if I could add to that, Chris,
yes.
One of the things to reinforce that concept is that if you are a traditional ISP, you are only doing phased construction. You are using your first construction phase to pay for your second, to pay for your third. So that's the industry model, and it does make sense to them, and it can make sense for communities.
Yes, and and you can do that both with a partner, or if you wanted to get into this yourself. We've identified, I think on the next page, Glenn, Step House Networks is one that if I remember correctly, may already have some conversations with. But regarding the phased approach, I also know that Sandy, Oregon, effectively did this in that they started with basic network connecting a number of their needed areas with wireless, and then they expanded the wireless, and then eventually they went into fiber once they found that they could make it work. But they used the competencies that they had developed through all those years of phased wireless and some very minor fiber experience into that final phase, which ended up being fiber to the entire city. So the phased approach is one that I think is what we're thinking about. It also allows you to if you get the worst case scenario would be that you would commit to this and you would find that it was not something that was working out for any number of reasons. And at that point, you would have an opportunity to cut your losses through a sale if necessary, or some other way of getting out of it before costs had gotten as extreme as they would get with a citywide type approach. So one of the reasons I like about this, that I like to say about this, is that I think of phased models as being an opportunity to do what you can today and give yourself more opportunities in the future to make decisions. You're not locking yourself into anything in the future. So we have some next steps that are toward the bottom of the document, which are intended to offer some suggestions as to where you might go next, because our goal is to give you information that you'll be able to act on. And some of the things that we would expect to come next would involve education. We have some resources and some suggestions for how to educate local leaders and that sort of thing. We generally see successful projects involve some sort of champion, maybe an elected official, maybe a staff member, maybe a member of the community, but someone who this is their main priority. Not someone who's thinking, oh yes, when I'm not out following my passion, I encourage us to solve this broadband problem. But someone who's really taking charge of it in one way or another. And part of that is then they would be working with, I think of as the three-legged stool of staff, elected officials. Those are two of the legs, one being staff, one being elected officials, and then a third is local, either residents or businesses. And so you want to make sure that you have support from all three of those parts of the stool before you would move too aggressively forward on a project like this. Other things you would likely end up doing, if this again is something that you feel like the numbers are not too scary, that is something that you could, that is in which the costs seem well worth the benefits, was that you would probably end up hiring a consultant, which would not be us. A consultant that would really hold your hand through things like an RFP process to find a partner, if that's the direction you went, and then actually helping you to negotiate the contract with the partner to make sure the incentives line up correctly and that you're covered in the event of unforeseen circumstances. There would be someone that could help you, for instance, to gauge community support. and to set up things like the crowd fiber platform potentially to even go to the public to get a sense of their level of support, or to have a survey. Consultant would also be involved in public meetings as well, whether they would be answering questions or whether they would arrange for some other subject matter expert to be there to help answer questions. That'd be a great place to hand out some of the resources that Glenn had shown earlier, and I would say that he had it on the screen only briefly, but that the What Can Fiber Do for Your Community document, that is the third one on that list, is something that we have seen in a lot of communities really help for educating people. I was a little bit skeptical that people would dive into it and read a 17 or 18 page document about how wonderful fiber is, but people got pretty excited about it, and they often felt really excited about the opportunities after they had a sense of what we'd seen elsewhere. I feel like I have a number of other suggestions regarding a couple of ways you can move forward to fund this through the document that we call lessons learned from other projects. But I'm also leery that I've talked a lot, and I think maybe we should do a little Q&A or give you a chance to ask some questions, and then if some of your questions are leading into this, I can jump back into the lessons learned from other projects. Would that work?
Sure. Questions, council? No, there's some questions. I've seen people writing a bunch of stuff.
So how far does a wireless signal go?
You have a choice of vendors, which means you have a choice of answers. The one we modeled would go approximately 3 miles. That would be manufactured either by Mimosa, Redline, or Ubiquity Networks. They're all essentially the same equivalent.
Yeah, I think it's also, anyone who asks that question, I suspect you're well aware that you probably don't want to be exactly 3 miles away from the node. And so your mileage may vary. I will say that we have seen some remarkable improvements in wireless technology. 5 years ago, I tended to downplay whether I thought wireless was even worth getting into it. I think we've seen tremendous benefits, and whether it's in urban areas or rural areas, we've seen that wireless is delivering broadband as defined by the FCC. It's doing it in a reliable manner in many cases. And Glenn, I believe your wireless analysis suggested that while it may not work for everyone, that there's a lot of people that could get a very high quality signal based on the tower placement and the topology.
Yes, and outside as well. Just as sort of a rule of thumb, when you go to the manufacturer website, we provided 2 manufacturer websites in the links here, you will see a range up to number. Divide that by 2, whatever that number is, and that's what you can really expect. So when I say 3 miles, that's based on advertised ranges of 6. Plus, I've installed this stuff, and I see what it really does. And it's up to, you can see the signal, but you're not going to see any throughput.
Is that 3 mile? Is that a 3 mile distance? Is that from each tower? And how many towers are we looking at in our city?
I believe the count is 7. Now, the way we think of it is that this is an 80-foot telephone pole, which is the least expensive construction method that works. So the pole itself is a couple of $1,000s once you have the right to get there, and then you have to run a fiber to it. And we break the towers into what we call sectors. A sector is basically it's a directional antenna, and it's got a width of say 30 degrees, 60 degrees, 90 degrees, and you will support up to 40 users on one radio in one sector. So what we're saying is you'll have up to 8 sectors on a tower before we have to get another tower.
And have you had any pushback and any problems with locating towers? And do you go on lease kinds of options if they're not on public land? And what kind of issues have you had with that in terms of citizens' outcry of what those towers look like especially near the streets and on the power utility poles?
Right. So the concept that we're thinking of is technically, can you do it? Politically is a separate issue. For our concept,
that wasn't my
telephone pole
question.
is very cheap, easy to get. You can put it anywhere, but that doesn't mean that you are allowed to put it anywhere. The locations that we provided are optimal locations. That doesn't mean they're the only locations. And if you go to the process of saying you're going to do that, one of the RF engineering consultant folks could tell you exactly what the propagation is going to be if you move the location to an acceptable location.
Okay, my question was more specific. Have you had or encountered any pushback from citizens and communities regarding this issue of aesthetics on utility poles and inconveniences of any sort? Have you had any pushback?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard question to answer. Most of our work has been in terms of helping communities understand where to put this. And the siting process is something we've not been involved in. That said, it would be hard for me to imagine there would not be some pushback for any wireless tower based on my experiences. An 80-foot tower is a significant height. And so one of the things that I'd recommend doing would be to look at the areas, because I frankly don't know what's in the at the XY coordinates where they're identified today, but I'm guessing that you would, just by looking at the addresses, and you'd probably have a sense of who the immediately adjacent property owners are and that sort of thing.
And with the
on the other extreme, when we've installed in places like Georgia, a little bit more rural area than where you folks are, the people have been so happy to get it, they didn't care what it looked like. So there's those two extremes. Thank goodness I have internet versus not in my backyard.
And any safety issues regarding the selected sites that need to be of concern, and at all, anything? And then is the estimation of cost analysis on number 3 that you had looked at, does that include the sites and purchase of the sites, or going through erecting those towers? Is that at all included?
It includes the cost of erecting the tower, the connection of the fiber to the tower, the installation of the radios, antennas. It does not include purchase of the site. However, one thing to think about when we've done this for real in other parts of the country, we found it very, very easy to have the property owner say, you can put it on my site as long as I get free internet for as long as it's there. That actually works well.
And just getting back to you, I'm looking at it. One of the locations is directly adjacent to the high school football field, it looks like. So some of these locations, I think one of them is right next to the public library. And so in some of these cases, there may not be an acquisition cost.
Does the FCC require any space between a tower and areas where crowds will be collecting, and if there are school children involved?
All right, so you're basically asking, is this radio technology lethal? All right, so what it is for this type of equipment is it's a 5 gigahertz signal broadcast through a directional antenna. The total wattage on this is something around 3 to 5 watts. It's an unlicensed spectrum. It's a low power radio. It's going to be less power than a cell phone antenna by a factor of about 20. So you're going to have more risk from your cell phone towers if you have a radiation concern than you would from this technology. But if you have a concern about RF radiation, yes, it's generating RF.
And I would just go further to say that there is the FCC sets power limits in order to make sure that human safety is covered. There are people who disagree with where they're set. I, for other reasons, have looked into the data to try and get a sense of whether there is any kind of increase in relevant cancers or other health conditions. And despite the fact that we seem to be increasingly saturating ourselves with these signals, the rates of new incidences of relevant cancers seems to be going down. This is a radio wave that doesn't penetrate the at 5 gigahertz. It doesn't penetrate the skin, I believe. So, so anyway, this is a hot issue. Like, and I'll tell you that Portland and Eugene are areas in which there is a much higher level of concern about this than we see in most other areas. So I don't know how much of that I would predict would spill over into your community, but we are seeing a lot of, I would say, personally, I would say unwarranted concerns, but I certainly understand that people are less trusting of authority today than they have been in the past, and some of that is justified.
I'm not going to say that it's safe, but to give you an analogy, if you're standing 5 feet away from your microwave oven, you're going to be getting more radiation than you would standing 20 feet from one of these, and it was pointed right at you.
Are you sure?
Now,
It's there.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Are you sure about that?
Oh, right. There, if you have a concern, we can get you RF readings. We actually have used electromagnetic EMR meters on this stuff and measured it, because everybody's concerned about it, especially those of us who play with it. You know, it's not like I'm going to put in the radio and pretend it's harmless, and people are telling me it isn't. So we've measured this stuff. It's definitely radiating, because that's what it's supposed to do, but it's not a lot of power. So the question is, how much is too much? And that's where the big debate rises from.
And now, one thing I did want to mention is that one of the points of our tool is that if you look at where the towers are and you say that we believe that it's untenable there, but we'd like to see what it would look like if we move it 3 blocks this way or move it to this address, then that is something we can do for you.
Question, we have a couple 300-foot towers. Can those be utilized?
Absolutely. The reason we don't generally include those in there is because of something called co-location fee. So if you've got a tower that's owned by American Tower, and it's say 300 feet tall, that's an excellent tower to use. And there's no reason why you can't use it until you see the price. And then you're going to start saying that to lease that tower can hit you as much as $6,000 a month.
No, we own both of these towers.
Could be. Oh, you own the tower?
Yeah.
And it's up to the team that owns the tower to tell you if you can use it.
And they're kind
In
of
all probability you can, because this radio equipment is very lightweight.
they're kind of in the weak areas you were describing too. Would that beef up the areas that they're kind of located towards that weaker section where you said there wasn't a lot of houses anyhow? Would that boost that area with a higher tower?
Well, it's all line of sight, so.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I think Glenn's about to run the analysis for that. Glenn, I don't know if you're talking, but we haven't heard you say anything.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right. So let's go into library here and find St. Helens and bring it up in whatever mode it's in. All right. So excuse me, I'm doing my whatever stuff it is I do. So we want to find out where the towers are. All right, so it looks like You've got registered with the FCC 3 towers, and none of these look like the one you just described.
He's talking about a
Yeah, if you've got a tower in there, it's not in the FCC database.
it's a mill.
Can any of you tell us where it is?
It's on the Cascade Tissue Mill site towards the river.
Somewhere up in here?
No, towards the river. Now go south a little bit.
They're probably not registered.
Yes.
No, they're not. Yeah, they're not registered. No.
So you see that old, you see that body of water, that little inlet there? That's our wastewater treatment facility to the right.
Go south.
And then now, south. Keep going south. Yeah, I think you're going north.
East.
You're going north.
Keep going.
He was going east.
You see the corner of it, the very bottom corner there was it. You just by
Keep
that.
going down.
Glenn, did you see it? It's actually, there was a label that said the wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah,
on
get off the highway and get over towards the river.
It's like watching bowling.
I'm looking
And now go
closer.
Glenn, it's
down.
at the bottom of the screen. You're going the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So it's the
Bottom
wastewater
of
treatment
the
plant
screen.
on the water.
On the water.
So pull up, go south.
Hold up. Go south. As in there.
Nope, south.
A little
Yeah.
bit more south.
Yeah, a little bit
Just
more.
a little bit more
south is what we're saying.
There you go.
You're really close now. So if you go a little bit more south, right
There you
in
are,
there,
right there.
right there is the tower. Actually, it sits right off that lagoon. Back up a little bit.
You can see the shadow of it.
It's back up a little bit.
And then there's
That's
also,
not it.
there's also the chimney too.
Yeah, there's a smokestack. We own that property there. It's an old paper mill.
It's up by 11 o'clock.
It's up
All
by
right,
11.
well, let me just take a quick look at this, and
Okay.
let's go figure out if that tower makes a big difference or not. And there's a possibility it does. So I'm going to go do a tower analysis, single tower study, search radius 5 miles. And we are Washington, Oregon.
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 Go Ducks.
I'm sorry.
Ever since the mountain blew up.
Maybe beavers too.
I spent.
Bucky the beaver.
All right, where is St. Helens? There you go. So this is
Part
just
of-
taking
yeah.
a look at what that.
This is so I live in St. Paul, where we spell it out, and so I'm always curious which cities abbreviate versus which spell it out.
All right, so I'm going to move that tower over to approximately there, then we'll go find it again. And then you're going to tell me how tall it is. And, this point right here? Okay, so,
That's real close. Yeah.
Keep going.
right,
Back up towards
so-
that lagoon.
Go about halfway back up
more
again.
south?
10
No,
o'clock.
North.
There it'd be. All right, so how tall is this thing?
You're going the wrong way.
It's about 300 feet.
Go back up with that. Go.
Is it this one?
No, you're going to go up a little bit more
Keep going
on the
up.
other side of that mill right there.
That's pretty close right there.
It's real close.
That's within.
In the tail of the tower.
Keep going a little bit. Keep going.
You'll
Keep
see
going.
the
Keep
shadow
going.
on the ground. You can see it right
No,
there.
keep going.
That's it.
Well, there is a. We could use the chimney. It'll hold all kinds of equipment.
All right, well, let's pretend it's here. And let's
Yeah,
see what the
that
propagation
apparently
looks like.
is it. The
So
shadow
how
there.
tall is that?
It's 300 feet.
You said that's 300 feet, so let's say we can go up 280 and leave the rest alone. and that would be a decent location. Now, we're bringing in some other parts of the world that aren't part of your city, but we wouldn't get up past this area here that you're seeing. The maximum propagation field would start breaking down at the hills, and then for the balance of the city, you'd still need that second or third tower.
Yeah.
But that one would cover. Problem is, there's a large population group on the other side of the river we cover too. So I'm not sure. You'd be covering about 1,200 maybe.
Not necessarily a problem.
That's agricultural land on the other side.
Revenue. Now, one of the things that we haven't talked about that I think is worth talking about is making sure this is where having a consultant I think would have a sense, because offering a fixed wireless solution would likely be something that could be cost competitive and even lower cost depending on the appetite of the cable company. But the cable company would certainly be able to advertise faster speeds, and so you have to have a sense of how people would react to that, whether they're most concerned about price or if they are interested in just the fastest speeds that are available for some given price point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the other things, the recommended vendor that we think you should talk to, they have installed both fiber and wireless, so they're experienced in both. And one of the reasons I really like them. Yes.
Okay.
So one of the things we kind of jumped right in here, and this is John here, is why municipal broadband? What does that bring to communities? Why are communities like Hillsborough and Sandy doing that, and other communities across the country? Things related to 5G service, and what does gigabit service to the home mean? I don't know if you want to take a crack at that, or it seems like we just got right to the technical piece rather than the maybe it's kind of obvious. So
Sure. Would you like me to address that?
Yeah, please.
I wasn't sure if that was a question for your side or if you'd like.
No, we'd like you to take a crack at that. So
I'm sorry, your audio is coming through a little bit fuzzy.
He's just very quiet. We'd like you to take a crack at that and go ahead and explain the 5G.
Okay. Yeah, one of the things that's interesting about 5G is you go from propagation of 3 miles to, several hundred feet, depending on who you ask. Some people might be expecting to get it out to 800 or 1,000 feet around towers that are much closer to the ground. And so the result is that we would not expect to see robust investment like that anytime in the near future in a community the size of St. Helens. Portland may be getting it in some areas. Frankly, the costs of it are much higher than most people have discussed, and there's a lot of question as to just how much of it the AT&T and Verizon will want to invest, because we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars to be able to bring this across the entire country. So a lot of the discussion around 5G has been premature, and I think in 2 or 3 years we will start to see where 5G is actually starting to be invested and being used in. So I would say that community that's not a major metropolitan community betting on 5G means several years of certainly nothing, and then followed by some small percentage of households getting access to those kinds of services over the following few years, and then maybe after 2025 starting to see maybe a majority, but never more than 60 or 70% probably of the community having access to 5G until after 2030 or so maybe. These things take on the order of 10 years to hit market saturation. So, and so I generally don't encourage communities to view 5G as a likely escape from the scenario in which they're worried about the broadband that's available to them. Now, as to why communities are moving forward with some form of municipal investment, that's often because they have a feeling that they are losing businesses or citizens to other communities that are better connected, or that they're missing opportunities, whether it's for new businesses coming to town or that sort of a thing. And I think Hillsborough just announced their very aggressive pricing, which is $55 for a gig, which puts them somewhere in the top 10 in the United States for lowest cost access for that quality of service. It's going to be several years until that's available to most people. So it's not like you're going to start suffering tomorrow. But communities that are in a position like yours that are investing in municipal, I like to say municipal investments, because many of them will be looking for partners. They're not necessarily going to set up their own ISP. They're doing it because they are concerned that otherwise their best case scenario is that the cable company is their sole form of high quality access, in that their prices will go up. They will not have much control over their economic development opportunities, and that their quality of life will be lower than that of some of their neighbors where they are having a higher quality service available. It's possible that a community like yours may see a company like Step House stepping up significantly anyway. We are seeing more small private ISPs being formed, but they are typically not able to invest nearly as rapidly as municipalities can, and to some extent they may just look at the highest potential revenue areas of town to invest in, rather than trying to bring coverage to the entire town. So I can spend 3 days talking about this with you, but I will try to skim and just sort of summarize the motivations, and I'm happy to go back and forth as useful.
Okay. I think he's explained it well. Better service. It's going to be slow growing. Kind of like XM radio, in my opinion. It was very state of the art, and it's been a slow grower, but still good. You can punch in anything you want and get it right now. So that's what we have to also expect as well in the future if it were something we desired to do. So we are right at our timeline on your report on my agenda. So is there any other questions from the council? Staff?
I should also probably say that or share that I've been talking with the county. The county's doing a similar effort to provide service throughout the county, not necessarily fiber to home, but just a broadband study for the county. And we're collaborating, having that discussion if this moves forward, that we want to do it together and make sure we're moving efficiently. And this was actually one of two proposals, not proposals, but Quick Start was going with this proposal, and we had another company, Lit Technologies, which they've worked together with these, and they're more on the construction side of things, and they also did I had a presentation from them, which was really yield a lot of the same kinds of results here. Bear a little bit different slant on, the kind of the app-based applications of how the technology in the future might work, and it's very interesting. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
Cut them loose.
Gentlemen, we thank you for your time today. Chris?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
I am here if you have other questions that occur to you. I do think that your region is very interesting, with Hillsborough having already moved forward, your county looking at this. Multnomah has an active group that is pursuing a study, and then Clackamas as well. So, there's very few other regions I could point to in the United States in which we see this sort of dynamic, and I'm curious to see what happens, but I hope that it will result in a lot of coordination as you all move forward. But I'm very happy to help with any suggestions we can along the way.
Yep.
If I can add one other element to that, we've looked at a lot of communities, and your community is very compact. This is a very doable project if you choose to do so. You're not spread out over 400 square miles. You've got decent population density throughout your region. You've got available services. You've got available partners. This is a doable project if you choose to do so.
All right, gentlemen, we thank you again.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Are we disconnected? We good? Okay.
So hopefully you saw that was more than I can deliver.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information
Yeah, yeah,
there.
Boatload
When I
of
heard that presentation the first time, I was like, this
Well,
is
I
a
like
lot.
that
So-
we have the information to go look at if we so choose to. So, okay. So now we're going to get an annual report from insurance agent of record, Chris Iverson from Hagen Hamilton. Hi, Chris.
I want to know why they got 45 minutes and none of them can. Because I know everybody wants to hear about insurance for 45 minutes.
If the report is shorter, does that make it cheaper?
Nice paper. Wow.
Yeah, this is nice paper. I mean, he spent some money on this paper.
Extra trees died.
That part of our rate?
The paper?
Yeah.
No, we threw that in. So.
This is anti-slip resistant
You
and
know-
it can't catch on fire.
You know what's funny? Guess what I got?
The cheap version.
Not the cheap paper. So. Oh. Well, it actually was not too bad of an insurance year. The city is just. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm usually loud, and everybody asks me to be quiet. Anyway, we had a pretty good insurance year. The bottom line, when I look at this, and I went back and looked at the claims history, you're just growing. As a city, you're just getting bigger and bigger every year, and you're growing at a pretty fast rate. I tried to put some of the endorsements down on the bottom of this, and if you look at it, we added the 2018 John Deere excavator, the restroom at Gray Cliffs, covered picnic shelter pavers at McCormick Park. We added the Elk Ridge pump station. We added the Ram 1500 police vehicle. We changed the Farah building to a rec center. We added a 2019 John Deere backhoe and hydraulic breaker, and then we've added 4 police vehicles. And let me say too that we have not taken. You still have the old police vehicles there, and that will be taking off. So.
So that'll adjust it.
That'll adjust it down when we take those off.
Yep.
But I talked to Jose just a couple days ago, as a matter of fact, and they're not quite to the point of being where we can take them off.
Yep.
I guess the rental car company is going to take them over and dispose of them, but that hasn't happened yet. I did meet with staff again this year, meet with the department's head, met with John. He and I went and did another tour of the Boise property. There are some vehicles that you had that are kind of dead soldiers that are in storage that we were able to take off, and that is reflected in this. But every year you fill out a general liability questionnaire, or staff does, and when I go through it, it compares last year to this year, and it's just, you guys are just growing. I mean, your total personal services are up $1 million. Your police officers, which the number of police officers you have has increased by 1, but that goes to the rating on it. Anyway, and also CIS had an increase in police and fire vehicles. They started charging a little bit higher rate for police and fire because that's where they've seen most of the claims come from. We did a diligent search looking for any other companies that were out there that would be even in the ballpark, and there is nobody out there that will write everything that you guys do. So the insurance pool that you're in, city county insurance, is still the best pool out there. There's really, if we did try to rewrite that, what we'd have to do is break it up into 5 different companies, 6 different companies, somebody to cover the docks, somebody to cover you guys for your the directors and officers, the general liability, the property. Not many carriers out there are going to insure the paper mill, that type of thing. CIS does that all. CIS still insures every city and county in the state of Oregon, except the ones that are self-insured, and I think there's 4 of them that are self-insured, and they're like Portland, Eugene. So they're still our best market out there offering the limits that you really need. The other thing I was going to tell you about is, we carry $10 million worth of liability, and I know you'll be reading about it in the paper, but the Ninth Circuit just upheld the employment practices suit for Scappoose, and that judgment was $4.1 million, and the last time that I was able to look at the attorney bills from that, they were between $600,000 and $700,000. Back when this happened, they had a $5 million limit, and that was before I was the insurance agent.
So they soaked it up.
They are bumping right up against
Yeah.
their limit.
Yep.
Anything over that amount's going to have to come out of their pocket, which is sad. But the city carries $10 million. I think that's a really wise choice you guys made years back. Anyway, but as you can see, we went from about 323,000 this year. It's 348,000 and change. The staff, once again, is, in my opinion, doing a great job. They get us everything we need to do our job. Appreciate working with them. So if any questions that you have for me?
Yeah, Chris, I've got one on general liability.
Okay.
And how much did you factor in the fact that we have a private entity managing Sand Island now? And in terms of liability, I've always seen Sand Island as a huge liability, not only for issues of visitors and somewhat of the docks, but mostly of our workers going over, working with issues that, and in the most recent times, it's been needles that have been around, feces scattered around the island. I mean, it's been a mess, and I've always been concerned about the liability. Now that it's under private management, and that's saving the city a lot of money in terms of keeping that island clean and keeping track of things.
Sure.
Where it seems to me like the liability was that factored in at all on general liability by chance?
On the general liability, it still, unfortunately, Doug, it doesn't stop somebody from still suing the city. You guys own it. You may have agreements in place with the person that's doing the lease on it, that type of thing. In fact, I know that you do. You may do certain requirements, but you're still a target. If somebody gets hurt over there, they're gonna name the city in a lawsuit. So I can't give you a definitive number because, of course, I don't figure that. The insurance company does. As far as workers' compensation is concerned, workers' compensation, all it takes into account is the job classification. It gives you a rate for the job classification. So the answer to your question, probably didn't save us a lot of money. They are made aware of it, but it probably did not save us a lot of money.
And then the next one is on auto.
Mm-hmm.
And did we? It looks like we didn't save any money by going to a lease organization and leasing some of our automobiles. And as time goes on, we'll be leasing more. Is that any kind of break in that?
Well, unfortunately, we're still responsible for everything that we were responsible when you owned them. We still have the full liability, and now we have the property damage as well. We name them as an additional insured on your policy, but we're still responsible for everything that we were responsible before. And that I'm not going to say this works against us, but we have now we've got, instead of 3 or 4 year old vehicles, we have brand new vehicles that the values are higher on. Mm-hmm. And of course there are limits in the contract that make us insure for certain amounts and that type of thing, the replacement of the vehicle, that type of thing.
Okay.
So that hasn't changed. If you had bought new vehicles, we'd have been in the same situation.
Good.
And we haven't taken off the older vehicles yet either.
Right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, we still have those to take off. So the city's premium changes. I mean, this is the premium today, but Kathy could call me, John could call me, or send me an email, and tomorrow it's going to change because you guys move so fast and do so many different things.
Yeah.
So.
Thank
so,
you.
Yes.
Over at the mill site, so the leased buildings, are we covering the leased buildings for fire and
That's what
whatnot?
John and I went over and looked at the other day, and I sent him a list, and so we're working on that list and defining the list because that has changed since we first took it over. There is a list of buildings we are covering, but we also have a list that John's talking in talks with Cascade and is going to get back to me and let me know if they're taking care of them or we're taking care of them.
Well, even if they were taking care of them, we wouldn't get any money out of that if something happens, right?
Right. I mean, we can, most likely the checks, if they insure them, they may self-insure, I don't know. But of course, any money coming would probably go to them unless they're contractually obligated to name you on those buildings.
So we need to get a copy of their insurance and see where
it's at and that type of thing. So.
Okay.
But
How was your tour over there?
It was good. They're cleaning up a lot, which was encouraging, and John was a lot of good information on what's going on, and that's something too that changes throughout the year.
It is, yeah.
And just being able to go out and see that and know, and I think John and I got a pretty good handle on it now, and once he gets talks to them and finds out what's what, then he'll get back to me and we'll figure out if we need to add any other buildings or delete. I don't think we're going to have to delete any. I think we've got that
definitely have to add.
But we probably will have to add some that they no longer are using that they were using.
Yep.
So.
Anybody else? Questions? That was very loud.
I was loud?
No.
No.
Yeah, you're loud.
Am I?
You
Kathy
are.
told me I was too quiet. So.
Dang it. Any other questions for Chris?
Mighty fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
No,
Thanks
I
for
appreciate-
keeping us covered.
Appreciate you guys. I deal with a lot of insureds, and the city is a pleasure to deal with.
Yeah, and you've been your responsiveness to requests for insurance and
Yeah, you're always
you're
good.
just
When
right
we
on
have
it.
when we have a question, you're always available, so we
Well,
appreciate that.
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yep.
And your staff is great too.
I'll tell them you said that.
Yes,
Okay.
please do. All right, Chris. All right, we're gonna do a police station feasibility update. A new building for Chris to occur, maybe potentially. I don't know. Okay.
You're gonna listen in the bathroom? We can put speakers in there. I'll work on that. That way you don't miss anything. Okay. Another exciting presentation. So we're going to talk about the police station feasibility study that we are currently working on. And John and Brian are probably going to chime in as we kind of go through to explain areas that they have more expertise in and more thoughts on. But I'm going to go through this initial presentation to give you an update of where we're at. So back in March is when we started with and selected a firm from Portland called McKinsey. They have done a number of police stations specifically in Oregon, Sandy, Oregon, and Canby that are pictured as well as Albany and a few other police stations that they have currently worked on. One of the main points for staff wanting to choose McKinsey from the beginning was the number of studies that they did with police stations, but also the number of police stations that they did that are currently built. That was one strong thing that stuck out versus McKinsey versus some of the other firms that we looked at, whereas they did police station studies, but they never went anywhere. So to give you a rough idea on the timeline, we started in March. We expect to be done in November. What we have done so far is basically an initial discovery and analysis of what our current needs are. We've done some surveys with all of the police station staff to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and what's needed in the new station. Staff has gone ahead and identified 9 potential sites right now that we are looking at. They are both sites that are owned by the city as well as sites that are not currently owned by the cities. So one goal of this presentation is to get you to think location-wise of where a police station would be best fit, and we have some additional slides that we're going to go through that will give you some better knowledge to make a better decision, and then some direction from staff of where we would like to go. In the RFP and the feasibility study, it's written that we would select, as a council, you would select up to 4 sites to choose from. The McKinsey firm and staff would go through and do a deeper analysis of what the floor plan may look like, some initial cost analysis of what it could potential be at the end, and then McKinsey will actually come back here around November timeframe and give it a formal presentation, in August, to give you a formal presentation of those 4 sites, what they may look like, some additional information from those 4 sites. The goal would be for the city council to select one site to focus on, and then that site they would go back and do a more in-depth analysis, and we would also look at funding strategies and some other opportunities as well. So just to kind of give you a little roadmap of where we're at. So from the initial discovery, many of you probably know that the current police facility was built in 1971, which is almost 50 years coming up. The facility is about 2,200 square feet, and from our surveys from our current police officers and staff, we've obviously identified some really key points that were lacking in the current station. Those would be just general office space needs, private meeting rooms, interview rooms, training and briefing rooms, evidence storage, locker rooms, and a break room and kitchen. When we did the initial survey with all the police officers, they went through and kind of wrote down what their dreams were. What was the stuff that they really needed to do their job? What were the necessities that were needed? What are some of the pluses that maybe you've seen at other police stations? You have a question.
Well, I just want to make a point, if anybody is watching, that the facility itself is 2,200 square feet. There are homes bigger than that, for crying out loud.
Yeah, they're currently...
That's a 4-bedroom home.
Yeah, it's a
2,200 square feet.
4-bedroom home in
Just
Oak Meadows for about $400,000 right now.
It is 48 years old. And when I talk about this, I get very passionate because I've been there and I've seen what they're dealing with. And it is very undersized, shared locker rooms. This is way overdue.
It's easy to find everybody, though.
It's not too many places to hide in there.
The big concern is as far as I'm concerned, is the evidence storage space. That is appalling, and it's so easy to see why things fall through the cracks in terms of maintaining and keeping evidence.
It's definitely a key aspect.
It's appalling to me.
Yeah, it's definitely a key aspect that the staff and police chief has identified, and definitely something that's on our radar to look at. So a couple things that we're looking at for a new facility. When we went through all of the analysis, and McKinsey also used some of their analysis from current police studies that they have done, what we have come to is a rough estimate of about 22,000 square feet for a new building. And with some estimates of anticipated growth in the community as well as the police staff as well. And we look at about a horizon of about 2040. So a couple things that we wanted to get your thoughts on as a council is a little bit of direction on a few key items that you see listed up there. Staff, and I think particularly I asked for at least looking to see what it would be like if we had a community room in the police station. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with the police station in Sherwood, Oregon. It has a community room that's attached separately in the lobby area that is very well used for other organizations and trainings and community meetings. So it was a nice opportunity to kind of see what it would be like to fit that into our current police station, because we often hear about issues of no meeting spaces in town or no places to go. So we asked McKinsey to add what would be a basic community room that was about 1,500 square feet. Staff, as well as council, has also looked at the idea of potentially moving the courts, municipal courts, over to the police station when it's built. We McKinsey estimated that that space is about 700 square feet between all the offices for the 2 court employees that we have, as well as the judge and prosecutor.
So could that community room be a dual purpose then?
Yes. So the idea that McKenzie looked at was using the community room as the trial court, the courtroom, pretty much.
Yep.
So a dual purpose.
Makes
And then the other thing that was listed on there was a workout facility for the police officers that was available 24/7 for a police officer to go in and work out. It also provides a training room for officers to do basic trainings in hand-to-hand combat and those kind of things as well. So that was something that was kind of listed on there as a want for the new police station from the surveys and staff. But at 1,500 square feet, you're going to see on the next slide how much was a rough estimate of what every square foot costs in a new police station. So these 3 things we wanted to bring up to you to kind of see what your thoughts on and get a little direction of when we start looking at initial sites, because 1,500 square feet there and another 1,500 square feet there make a big difference on the price as we start to move forward.
Now, one of the things I do not see is I'm going to call it an interrogation area. A lot of the DUI and now the drug, you need some test equipment, which you can't carry obviously in a police car. Is that those type of exams, are they to be done in the police station or some other place in this area?
Private interview rooms as well as public interview rooms
No,
are...
I'm not talking about an interview. I'm talking where you have to take a test. You have a gadget you have to blow into.
They're at the county sheriff's office.
They're at the
Counselor.
county-
Yes, we don't have them on site. It's a breathalyzer machine and tox ladders of 5,000 that the officers are certified on, and that's housed at the sheriff's
Okay,
department.
so
we
you've
don't
got
need
the
one.
facility, but it's not here.
Right. We don't need that piece of equipment at the police station.
So based on estimates that McKinsey has looked at from the current Sandy, Canby, a number of other facilities that they're working on as well, they estimate that building a police facility is going to cost roughly about $400 a square foot. At 22,000 square feet of space that is identified by 2040, that's a price tag of about $8.8 million. So when we talk about those potential opportunities to look at, do we want to add municipal court in there? Do we want a community room? Do we need a workout facility?
A private company can do it for half that.
It's
For half, 200 a square foot.
a private
They're
company.
building houses for 100,
Correct.
roughly.
This is right now. The times are very good, and as I'm sure Councilor Locke can attest to, we've seen prices for cat quotes that are twice as much as what they should be.
Initial, but
And the 400 square foot is an initial estimate. Once you identify 4 sites to move forward on, we can better determine what we need and how much space and how it's going to fit on each site. What the economy does in the next couple of years can drastically affect that 400 square feet. When I talked to Bill Amos, to give you an idea, they built the school, the CCEC school. He said it was about $340 a square foot. So there may be a little leeway, but that is just an initial estimate to give you a ballpark of what to expect. So it's not going to cost $2 million. So
I didn't see an adjacent parking garage, and I'd like to ask Brian right now if in a small town, is that parking garage that is utilized now, is that a really tremendous asset to you?
Currently, it is, Counselor, the parking garage, because we have the donut day. We bleed over the evidence storage into the garage at times. But with the community room that would replace the parking garage, we would ask for secure parking for our employees and police vehicles. Prior to me getting there, there have been some personally owned vehicles that were damaged. We want to keep the nice fleet and keep our employees secure and safe. So we would ask for, and Matt has, we planned it to have secure parking. Although it is in a pie in the sky world, it'd be great to have it, but it's just space we can put other
but
things
a
in.
fence with a nice asphalt parking lot.
Right,
with
a
gate.
covered fence to keep our vehicles secure, and also during police operations, there are going to be equipment we don't want the general public to see for
Yeah.
for undercover operations. But we don't need that parking garage. That community room would replace that and be available. We'd have our functions in there.
So the other thing to keep in mind are also what McKenzie calls the soft costs. Building the actual facility is $8.8 million, but we still have to put chairs and computers and furniture and everything else. So they use a rough estimate of about 30% for the soft costs. So on top of that $8.8 million would potentially be another $2.6 million to put everything in to actually open the doors and make it workable, usable. So we have those costs to consider.
That stuff, Matt. You're good at it. The people under here.
So those are just some idea costs. These are not any kind of initial design costs or anything, but they are at least a framework idea of what you can expect as we move forward. So I just want to briefly touch on funding sources, just because sometimes when I say that 8.8 or $10.5 million potentially, that can be a hard pill to swallow. It doesn't have to be swallowed by one funding source individually. There are a number of options, including going out for a bond from the city. So far, at least on social media, I've seen a pretty decent response of that it's well needed. So we can also do some survey work through a third-party source that is something similar that the school district did, where they actually did cold calling to see what the interests of people were, what their appetite was for how much a bond could potentially be, if they would pay for all of it or a portion of it. Those are things that we can talk about later and give you some more information of, but that'll give us a little bit more direction on what the appetite is for the community on a bond. The other thing is looking at cash considerations. We have money in our pool account that is somewhat available loosely. And then we also have the side investment accounts. The one thing I want to caution you on using some of the cash that we have available is that we have a lot of future projects in the future that may require that cash investment, specifically like the waterfront and some other development plans in the pipeline down in the future. So using up a portion or some or all of that cash available can have some detrimental effects for some of your plans in the future.
Don't shoot ourselves in the foot, so to speak.
Correct.
Yeah.
There are also some loans and grants that we could look at. There's always conventional financing, as well as there is some grant programs that are available, or low interest loans from the USDA that we would very likely qualify for a public safety facility. I'm going to hand this over to Brian to talk more about this calls of service map and to give you some better ideas of where staff is looking at for location-wise. So, Brian?
Thanks, Matt. So the map you see up there, and a couple months ago, you remember I discussed meeting with CCOM, which is our dispatch center, who also is the keeper of our computer-aided dispatch CAD calls, so we can get a better picture of where our hotspots are, for lack of a better term, in the city, and make sure we're deploying our officers, our resources in those areas. So what you're looking at here is a rudimentary map of our calls for service. CCOM had recently got a mapping analyst from Washington County, and that individual, Nathan Hughes, and I have been speaking frequently, and he's beginning to build a system within their computers that will be able to get a better mapping system. So right there, what you're looking at is a snapshot of our calls for service in St. Helens. The challenge of that map is that it includes people who call the police, 911, and also officers who do self-initiated work. So it's really not a true map, that kind of paints a picture of where the problem areas are. And you can see it's kind of what we call a shotgun effect. It's all over the city. So I met with Nathan again, and he broke down our top 3 calls for service locations in the city of St. Helens of where our officers respond to on a routine basis. We've taken out the self-initiated activity. Our first is Walmart, Gable, and Highway 30, which is our biggest customer. Our second is the Forest Park Apartments, and our third is the Village Inn. So 1 east, 1 west, or 2 west of the highway. So Really, there's no, other than that, it's just kind of spotty as where the calls for service are, because the first question that everybody asks is where we're going to put the police station. If we get more calls on the west part of the highway, would it be beneficial to put it over there or east of the highway? Then you got to take the trains into effect. As we continue to progress as an agency, like I explained to the personnel there, the goal is not to have the officers at the station. They need to be in the community. And as we catch up with technology, that's the expectation, to be out in the community and not coming back to the police station to write reports. We have the capability of doing that in the field. As we, again, technology, these officers can actually take a report on their laptop or their tablet, and it would automatically download into the computer system at the station. So we're not there yet. We will get there. That's the technology advancements in law enforcement. But again, the whole goal by the time this police station is built is to, everybody says, well, we want the police station here. But the reality is those officers, it's not a forwarding operating base out of Iraq where we deploy from the police station. We're going to be ingrained in the community and be partners with the community. So if you guys would keep that in mind.
You're already doing that.
Yes, sir. So my take on it.
Good job, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. My take on it, honestly, is wherever you put it, it's going to be beneficial because, the big concern Councilor Morton brought up before is the trains. And it's, if we have a train and it's blocking, how do we, we do have egress routes that we would be able to get. We just have to go farther north to get across the highway if that did happen. So hopefully I didn't confuse you a whole lot. We're going to continue to work on this to make sure we're deploying our officers in the right spots in the community and solve problems, not just, if
when looking at this map, because I'm looking at it very closely, and it is a shotgun pattern, but I understand your 3 areas of where the calls are, but in looking at this, on this side of the tracks is very compact and a lot of little, there is a lot going on right there.
Yes, sir.
So other than those 3 areas, I would say it would be equal or more on this side of the tracks, which is kind of surprising to me.
It is, Mr. Mayor. You would think, right, you would think that. I would think if it's just being kind of new to the area is that with 70% of our population commuting to Portland, the majority of those residents probably live west of Highway 30, and the other portion of our residents live east of Highway 30. Yes. And I think we do have a higher response on this side. We have a higher interaction with our community.
I think so, on this side.
On this side of the highway, yes. Which is nothing wrong with it. I'm glad to see officers everywhere, but that's just the reality that we deal with. So,
well, more of a neighborhood watch, I guess.
Yes, sir.
So to speak, on this.
Yes.
Especially in this downtown area.
Yes, and I welcome people calling us because then we can solve the problems and get in front of them before they become bigger problems. So.
Yep. Yeah, I just found that interesting.
Yes.
Can you manipulate this data to have time of arrival?
Yes, yes, Counselor. That is something we're looking at again because when we identify a problem and we put resources on it, what's going to happen? It's going to kind of make the problem go away, but it's going to go to a different area. So we have to, if for example, if we have a person selling drugs at 5 o'clock on a Friday and we have officers 5 o'clock on a Friday, well, he's going to start selling his drugs Saturday at 3 o'clock. So we have to, that's data they're working on, sir. We're just not there yet. But we're every week we're getting closer and closer to get that information.
I'm also interested in you get a call and you have a policeman over there. He takes 7 minutes to get here.
Yes.
Now, say that typically the problem spot is here. The average arrival time is 2.5 minutes. That's kind of another manipulation of the data.
Correct. It does.
And I didn't know. And the question is the mechanism in your computer base able to do that? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
It is able to say from the time the officers are dispatched to the en route time, their travel time to the time they arrive. It would be able to give us those numbers, but then you have to factor in a lot of different contributing factors, traffic, weather. There's just, location, because again, they're not coming from the police station. They're coming from all over. They could be clearing another call for service to that.
But if I get that data, then I can tell where I'd like to have my, say, police station or other stuff. Obviously all these things have got to get thrown in.
Yeah, it's consideration. Yes, sir.
And it's just a design tool.
Yes, it is a tool. Again, as we get closer to this, hopefully Nathan and I will be able to, well, him, because he's the computer expert, be able to get the mapping. Crime mapping is what we need, and give us a better picture of exactly what we're looking at, and where the station should be. But again, not to beat a dead horse, regardless of where you guys decide to put it, we will respond like we are now in the community, and making sure that we have the safest community in Oregon.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
This is a map of St. Helens, obviously, with a flower arrangement of potential sites. Staff has identified, like I said, 9 potential sites that could work, that are both owned by the city as well as ones that are not owned by the city. So we have 2 sites that are identified in the north, 1 in the west, 1 in the south, 1 in the industrial area, 1 on the east side, and 3 sites in the central side. Now, as I said before, with Mackenzie and our RFP and our scope of work, we have in that agreement that staff or council will identify 4 specific sites to look at. Whether we decide to choose 4 to move forward on for an initial study, or 3 or 2 or even 1, if we choose 1, 2, or 3, that's obviously more time that we can spend on those 3 sites instead of doing 4. What I'm trying to say is we want to be selective in how much work they put into these specific sites, and we'd like to identify a few sites potentially, but we don't want
2, no more.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
2, no more.
So,
Well, I mean,
that makes sense.
just as kind of piggybacking on what the chief said, that the officers aren't necessarily at the police station, but we do have
Correct.
staff that is at the station, and I know its current location. The neighborhood has grown to really love that station and really appreciate that. There's a lot of people that walk in that neighborhood, and we do have staff there Monday through Friday, and that's a community place. You're talking about having a community center, so I would hate to see us put too much thought into areas that are removed from the populated areas. I know that we own property that is less populated, but I don't think that's the best case site.
So
That's just my opinion.
I will say one site that has a couple different potential options is the current police station site. Whether we use that specific
Rework
site,
the
and
footprint.
there are also some other options of adding a parcel here and there onto that property to make it more appealing. I think the goal that we're trying to paint with this picture right here is that, at least I believe staff is under the belief that we would like to focus more on the central sites rather than the ones that are on the outside. So the 3 sites that you see that are listed in the central locations, staff would prefer to have Mackenzie focus on those 3 sites and those potential sites to see how the feasibility may work on those specific sites and what they may look like. If we get very early on to figure out that, hey, this one site really isn't going to work right away, we can adjust that kind of as we go, probably with Mackenzie, and kind of insert another site if we find something that may work initially. But for Mackenzie to initially start what the station is going to look like, how much it's going to cost, how big it's going to be, what those attributes are of characteristics that we're going to include in the police facility, staff would like to try and focus on those 3 central sites first to see where we can go from there.
Is one of the parameters how easy somebody from out of town can get to the police station?
So Mackenzie has let me back up. So once we select the 1, 2, 3, or 4 sites that we want to initially look at, they go through an initial feasibility study on each specific site, and they have about 53 characteristics, if I remember correctly, that they have used on their police facility studies in other cities. I believe one of those characteristics would be the ease of getting to the police facility from people on the outside, how well it's easy to get to. If it's off like a main road or something.
I mean, being a small town, we all can kind of get there.
Correct.
But the people who don't know, who are coming in for whatever reason, so that is one of the parameters.
Correct. Yep. And so that would be part of that study when Mackenzie comes back in August. If we were to select these 3 central sites, you would see those feasibility studies and those characteristics broken down into each category, and McKinsey would be able to tell you, based on those parameters, what they feel is the best site and why. Any questions or thoughts or concerns?
Well, in the past, especially when I see the central three sites, there's some, I believe there's some great sites near Columbia Boulevard and St. Helens Street, in that area near where the police station is now. Gives a strong sense of the community of Holton, which in some senses needs a shot in the arm about now. And in the past, the police station was an icon. I mean, a total icon for our community. It was the fire station, the fire station at Columbia Boulevard, across from the Dairy Delish. And that's where you could find a police, and that's where you could find the fire department, and it was a very extremely central location. So anyone who wanted to, and I like what Topaz says, is that people might need to find the police station who are out of town. It's right smack dab in the middle of our city. I like that, and I like the choice of the staffs. Explaining that the central location makes a lot of sense, and so I'm in complete agreement with that.
And I think you're also touching on a point that when you're spending public money, I think on a public facility, especially a public safety facility, and you're spending whatever it may be, $6, $8, $10, $12 million, you want that facility to look great. You want it to be out in the open, and you want the public and everybody to see it, and something you want to be proud of as a community.
Exactly.
What is the third site?
Do you want to show the? Yeah. I will.
Yeah, my question though, before you do that, is it wise to start pursuing these sites? I mean, is this something we should be?
Well, I
talking
very
executive
very
session?
strategically did not name specific sites because, as I told you, some of them are not owned by the city.
Yes.
So it could be that if something is not owned by the city and then they find out, oh, the city wants it for a police station, now that's just going to jump the price up, and then that location becomes not a
That's
feasible
why I'm
plan.
saying.
Which is why we showed you a general range of
That's
where
why I'm
those sites
stopping
could
you.
be. I'm perfectly okay with that.
I think
I,
if you do
I
the
work
rest of
at
the
your
research-
pleasure and his, so whatever you guys want to do.
I agree with the mayor.
Until you do the rest of your research, I think that keep everything neutral is best.
Okay. You can come see me afterwards.
Okay.
That's all I have.
We have had some communication with potential
Property owners
and their
that
level
are
of interest.
interested in being a partner.
Right. So,
But
it is a little premature, perhaps. But
yeah, want to keep the research
Thank you, Matt.
clean.
Okay, department reports. Chief Greenway.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council, for helping us along, Matt, especially, and John for all that on the new police station. Gives us hope. So we have something coming up Saturday, July 27th. We're putting together our first annual Youth Police Academy. It's a one-day academy for our youth to kind of give them a taste what it's like to be a police officer. In my experience, my 30 years in law enforcement, I will tell you that if you get the youth interested in law enforcement, you have a better chance of kind of not only mentoring them to be good citizens for our community, but a chance to kind of get them into our own agency and work for the city. So we have a succession plan. When we see retirements or people going elsewhere, we would have somebody to groom. So usually you see this in with partnering with the Boy Scouts, called a Police Explorer program. So as we venture down the road in years to come and look at possibly introducing that into the St. Helens Police Department, this is a stepping stone. So Saturday, July 27th, it's still in the works. We're looking to put together a one-day youth academy. They're gonna we're going to send. Crystal's already sent out the advertisement. They're going to expose to classroom work, defensive tactics, canine, firearms, but no shooting guns or anything like that. Just basically what it's like to be a police officer. We're working with our legal department to get waivers. We're going to, there's a $50 registration fee. What that gives them is lunch and dinner provided, a t-shirt. So it's going to be held at the St. Helens High School. Again, we're putting this together. We're in the, I wouldn't say the infancy stages because we're already advertised it, so it's a go. And I will be happy to report on it as we progress. We have a meeting this Tuesday to kind of solidify the plans. Talked with Councilor Locke, who brought up a great idea about possibly offering a youth scholarship. I think that I think that's a great idea, but maybe the year following, Councilor, I don't know, because it's a new program and we want to work all the bugs out and we want to grow from this and look at what we can expand to, and maybe in the years as we progress, inviting the Columbia County Sheriff's Office to join us and other police agencies. But right now we're just putting it together and something to kind of connect the police department with the youth on a different level. And I know they're connected through various ways, but this is an opportunity for us to kind of showcase what the police do and garner some interest into the law enforcement field. One thing for certain is our economy is pretty strong. The interest in any type of military law enforcement is low because we always battle what's on the news. There's better paying jobs. Nobody wants to come down this road. So our goal is to kind of attract younger recruits, if you will, get them interested at a young age and kind of mentor them up until they're able to hire on with us. So, yes, ma'am.
2 parts. I had actually had testimony from people in TVNR, the fire department in Tualatin Valley, that they regularly recruit from their high school there. And my daughter did the academy in Salem a couple of years ago, and the people that wrote her scholarship was actually the American Legion, paid for her admission, which was a couple $100 to send her to that event. So I talked to Bill Amos, and he was very interested with doing anything regarding an academy here. So the school district's very excited about other career opportunities that we can offer, like police stuff.
That's great to hear, Counselor. Yes,
you bring up a good point.
They're super excited to have other career paths for our students.
Right.
I think that we should sponsor a few kids for this particular program.
Well, I think if somebody needs it, the council will sponsor.
Okay. Well, as we thank
We don't
you.
want anybody to be limited.
Right, and we don't either. We're not trying to limit anybody, or we're actually trying to bridge that gap between the youth and the police department and our community.
Right.
Not saying that's far apart, but this is just another avenue for us
we'll,
to kind of.
we'll require a letter to you guys and an explanation, of
Right.
just
what the hardship is.
Yep.
Yeah,
Understandable.
we support it.
Kaylee
Yes,
had to
thank
go in and pitch herself to the American Legion.
Okay.
She had to stand up there herself and tell why she needed to have that grant.
Okay.
So.
And we want to do this before the fire department does, for sure. So.
And also,
we don't want them stealing our potential recruits. So.
No, that's great.
Also, we have 3 service groups that would, if they got wind of this, and I certainly will contact the Rotary and possibly Lions and especially Kiwanis to
That's great.
let them know what's on the name. So
They're all
there'll
huge
be
champions of stuff
revenue
for youth.
sources.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Yes, as we have these meetings and everything, I'll be in touch and let you know how we're looking, and I'll report back on it in the near future for sure. Speaking of the fire department, I talked to Jeff Pritchard, who's a firefighter local, and we are partnering with them at some upcoming training. As everybody knows, the St. Helens Middle School has built a new school, and they're going to demolish the old school. And we have about a 2 to 3 week window of opportunity to do some training in that school before it's demolished.
Cool.
And we're going to partner with the fire department to do some intermingling of resources, whether it be an active shooter or something where we can work together with them in case we have an event here in the city. If anything, it's just, again, building those relationships with the fire department and police department. They're usually on calls, but this takes it a step further, which again makes our community much more stronger. So nothing but praise and thanks for the fire department we have here locally. They are just a professional organization. I've been talking to Jeff frequently about other things, about drones and their programs and everything, and we're just, again, bridging that gap. So that's coming up in late July to August and we're getting more details on that. Detective Dustin King is going to put that together with their training officer, and then our officers will be working with them and going through the school. So the best part about this is the school's going to be demolished, so we really don't have to clean up after ourselves, and we can break, seriously, we can break doors, break windows, real life training, which as realistic as it can be. Most of the time when you do that training, you're kind of simulating a lot of things and, okay, what would you do here? Whereas this gives us an opportunity to actually, break stuff. And what cop or fireman don't want to break things? Call me crazy. So, but that's all we have this week. And again, thank you again for everything. The police department staff is excited about the opportunity of being heard for a new police station. Don't want to beat a dead horse. We all know, and you all spoke about, the condition of the current one. So everybody's excited about, the opportunity to get a new one. So thank you very much for your support.
Yep. Okay, Public Works, Sue.
Yeah, good afternoon. Nice coordination of outfits today. Yeah, that's very nice coordination of their outfits.
I called everybody last night.
Oh, nice. Busy summer coming up here. So we have hired 4 of our summer helpers. So they've all started out at Public Works, well, actually out at Parks, but you'll see them out also with the Public Works staff.
A couple of them waved to me today.
Awesome.
Couple females that we've hired.
One. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there may have been an MTC worker,
Well,
which
I
are some
might-
volunteers,
I
or
just seen
some of the
females
community
driving,
service workers.
So I wasn't completely sure on the other, but.
Okay. Great. Yeah, a couple of them have a little bit of experience. One of them has gone through CERT training and so has some flagging experience.
Nice.
And so, so we were happy to get 4 good recruits there. We also have 2 new Utility One employees that have just recently started. So we have Nicholas Ratliff and also Ryan Powers has just started on Monday. And so we're happy to have them in
I was
our
actually
Public
able
Works.
to take back the gate opener because I had the 29 Mac.
Oh, yeah.
So I was actually there at 8:30, 8:15 and was able to meet them.
Oh, excellent.
Nice,
Oh, good.
Yeah, very nice young men.
Yes, yeah, both really nice, and again have a little bit of experience. Nick already has his Class A CDL, so he can hit the ground running, and
awesome.
Yeah, so we're happy to get those young men on board too. Everybody's probably noticed Gable Road. The traffic control's been set up there. So far we're into day 3. Everything is going far better than anyone had anticipated as far as the traffic control. The county has done a wonderful job of communication with all of the residents along that particular area of roadway and the businesses, and making sure that everybody's well informed. They have a special, you can sign up to get regular notices of the progress of the work and anything that might have changed. I can get you that information if anybody's interested in signing up on their information list. But they've done just a great job out there of getting everything going so quickly, and hopefully getting that project completed before 90% completed, at least before school gets started. That's the goal. We want to get all the work done over the summer. So they've just been really on top of things and really have been running a great show over there.
So how much longer will that road be compromised to traffic?
On Gable?
Yes.
Well, again, we hope that will be open by the time that school starts. So we'll be back into 2-way traffic.
So is there any reason why there's not a detour on Furlock Park to Childs Road back to Bachelor Flat Road?
I don't know of any specific reasons, so that would be something that we could verify with the county and with their engineering firm and find out if that would be an alternate.
Yeah, if you're going south, if you're going southbound on the highway and see that Gable Road is closed, there's Furlock Park as an alternative.
Right.
And,
to be able to get back to.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good suggestion. I'll bring that up to them and see if that would be something that they could also implement there. You've probably noticed, hopefully, some of the work that's been going on out along the highway landscape strip between the highway and the railroad. We have pretty much any available minute that either Public Works and or Parks Department have. They've been sending folks out there and doing a lot of tree trimming and sculpturing of the brush and removing a lot of dead material that's been sitting out there for a while.
A lot.
A
I mean,
lot.
I'm watching truckloads go out of there.
Truckloads of material. And
Yes.
the areas that they've been working on have been they look so much better. So we're trying to get through that whole thing. That's really a high priority for us this summer.
Sue, I'm going to
Yeah.
steal your thunder just a bit, but
Yeah.
it's
And-
not only aesthetics that is the improvement, but also safety around the intersections.
Exactly.
You can see through those intersections so much better,
Yes.
so much more effective.
Yes.
And along with that, going back to aesthetics, I don't know if any of the councils noticed the flowers that have been put out on the St. Helens it's kind of the welcome to St.
The little
Helens,
sign,
isn't
yeah.
it? Right.
The historic sign.
Very nice touch.
Okay, I'll have to.
Very nice.
I haven't looked at that. I knew that they were planning to get down there,
And
but I
that's
haven't looked
that's
at it yet.
Public Works, isn't
Yes, yes.
They caught my attention.
Yeah.
Public
That was
Works.
colors. They caught my eye this morning.
Oh, excellent.
Public Works is putting flowers in. I love it. This is great.
That
Super.
was actually our new public works supervisor's idea, Dave Elder. It was his idea to do that. So.
And then that catches a little enthusiasm, and you have volunteers like the Kiwanis coming
Yes.
forward to
Yes,
clean
and-
up the area out in front
Yeah,
of the
thank you very
chamber.
much to that group because
I mean,
they did a great job.
You start something like that,
Mhm.
and it just snowballs. So
Mhm.
it's a matter of pride.
Yep. And yeah, and again, thank you to all the work that they did out there a few weeks ago. That was extremely helpful. And last thing I had was the roadside mower is still broken. We were hoping to be able to borrow one of the county's mowers this week. It's not available yet. They are hoping to have one available that we can borrow next week, but they said it is also having a few mechanical issues, but they appear to be minor.
Don't borrow it. We'll break it.
Yeah.
You break it, you pay for it. No.
So we'll see if we can get those issues resolved before next week, and maybe be able to get a little bit of the roadside brush mowed back down again. So.
And I had
we're
one
hoping on
follow-up
that.
pre-question.
Yeah.
Margaret's not here, but I noticed in the last 2 times at the library, it looks like a large tree has died in their planting strip in front.
Oh, okay.
So it's, I think, they all leaf out different ways.
Yes.
Some of them look differently at this
Yes.
point. If it's still brown, it's probably.
Okay. We'll have to take a look at that
I just
one.
thought before somebody comes in and reports us, why do you have all these dead trees?
Yeah. Yeah. No, perfect. Thank you so much for pointing that out. I will have Thad look at that. That's all I had.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. Matt.
I do have a few things. I wanted to let you know that, or remind you that we have a public forum next Monday at 6 o'clock at the Lou Witt Room.
Yep.
So please be there. The school district should be there as well to help field any questions about the final reading of the ordinance that is on tonight's agenda for the community recreation and parks fee. This is just the language to put it in the ordinance. It's not actually starting any kind of fee or anything. That still has to be voted on and decided on the amount and everything.
Yeah,
This
but
is
just
just
to
the
get it
language that gets it
in
into the
place.
code. Correct.
Into place. Yep.
Yep.
Got it.
So on the agenda as well tonight is a senior center contract with Columbia Northwest Heating and Cooling. If you remember, about a couple of meetings ago, we did a price quote for a new service contract, and Columbia Northwest Heating's a local company. They came in about $1,500 cheaper than the current company that the senior center was using. So Kathy Senti was okay with moving forward, and obviously you guys said it was okay, so that contract is on for the agenda tonight. Also give you a quick update that we had interviews yet Monday and Tuesday for the utility billing position, and we're just doing background checks on a person that we believe we would like to go ahead and hire. So we'll continue doing those background checks, and hopefully that person can start soon, which will be very thankful for Jamie over in utility billing, who's been the only one doing utility billing for the last couple months, so she's a little backed up. I also wanted to let the council know that we have met with Lewis Audio and Video, who is the company that does all the mics and videos and everything. We've talked with them about the issues of that mic and connecting laptops, also your microphone's on there, and Kathy's
Yours
little
sounds a little muffled
issues.
right now,
Mine's a
by the
little
way.
screwed up.
Yeah.
and we got to a certain level, and it's about time to take it to the next level to kind of finally finish off this this thing. So we have them scheduled to come in at the end of August for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on a non-council week to put in. They're actually going to take these out. We're going to put in some ceiling mics that will just kind of, it's one big kind of tile that sits just a little bit below the ceiling, and it has about 28 directional Omni mics that pick up sound from whatever direction it goes. So we're thinking about 2 or 3 in this room to collectively hear everything, even somebody from talking here, as well as some of the people that decide to make comments in the back that don't come up here, so that we can hear them on TV as well. So
might as well. Yeah.
Might as well.
Yep.
So I think that is all I have.
Okay. Kathy? John?
Yeah, there's several things. The earlier presentation on municipal broadband was something that we've been working on for a while. Like I said, I mentioned there was another presentation that really had more of a construction and funding focus, but those companies have worked together. They work together. They actually work together separately of this, and kind of came to a real similar conclusion that it was potentially a very doable project in St. Helens, and financially feasible, even at a relatively low capture rate, meaning getting those customers. And I don't know if the council's appetite for that, if they're interested or want to continue work, or if so, how to proceed. If we have an ad hoc kind of a working group, maybe a couple council members want to be a part of that, and we can work with staff and kind of go to the next level if we want to, or you want to think about it for a while. Or,
go for it.
I think the future of having gig service to affordable gig service to the whole community is a real economic driver. It's another thing to do for sure, but
I think I'd like to think on it just a little bit to get a feel. Personally, I don't know. But I'm one of 5.
I'm not in the let's go and get the starting pistol out.
Yeah.
That's not me.
Right. But
No. I'm in the we're still pondering, still got to look at other things. More research needs to be done.
I would agree
And I
with
don't wanna-
that.
I
That before
don't-
we spend any money, that just to continue to look at it.
Well, and not
Fill in the
just
argument, yeah.
money, but also staff time. We've got staff that is going in 6 different directions already, and I'd like to see some of the projects we've got started move forward before we start kindling a new fire. I don't want other people that already have to quote Jacob is sure we can put other things aside and do this first, because it's not like anybody has leisure time.
Right.
Staff is really busy and trying to move other things ahead. So I think time to think and process is important. Do more research, get more facts together. We just talked about a police station. We've got lots of stuff to ponder. Lots of stuff. I'm just the anti-shopping girl. I can't help it. It's like, stop.
Thought you were community development now. It's right up your alley.
I know, one
You're
thing at a
supposed to be
time.
gung ho.
I know.
Okay, well, I will at least share the rest of the work that we've done with the other contractor and get back to you on that.
Yeah, if there's more information, that presentation today for me was way too detailed, way too much, and it was like I came away with, why would we even do this? It costs all this money, and why would we do it? So I don't think they sold us on the idea of the project before they got into the weeds.
Yeah, this other presentation went there first.
Right.
Talked about telemedicine and
Yeah.
app-based kinds of performance and how the cost is really pretty.
Ginny, I've got to think about, years from now, No, I mean, not now. I mean, this wasn't anything to do with, like, I don't think, right now. And so their presentation, I thought, was a good presentation. It opened my eyes to a lot of things in the future. And it's not so much now that we've got to hop on this. There was one presentation that I thought was important, and that was the ports. And that dealt with, again, an educational facility, which I find we should jump through any hoops that we possibly can to get on board with that and not let it get involved in some kind of process, some kind of bureaucratic process that it slips away. And, oh, by the way, it goes to Scappoose. That's one thing that I would not like to see. So I think just in terms of us really kind of settling in on timelines and getting an understanding of what is presented to us, I felt the same way you did. There was so much to absorb in the one presentation about broadband that we need a lot of time on that.
Yeah,
and that's years in the future.
Yeah, I'm glad that we kind of lit a fire under them. To their point, that went into the report is we have yet to receive an application.
Yeah.
He's here asking for a variance and a lot line adjustment that the application is not in our building.
Yeah.
So we couldn't even act on it because they haven't done their part. So we
Yeah.
definitely lit the fire in.
Yeah, we'll get to it though.
Yeah. Anyways.
You gonna say something?
The 5G is marching through the world faster and faster, but it's just beginning. I have a feeling waiting a little bit, the price is going to come way down, and a lot of the little details, how you get it in place fast. Hillsborough is a high-tech town.
Yep.
We'll let them go first.
Yeah, and then a lot of what Hillsborough will do is just to be first. I'd rather be better and be a little bit later, but the whole world is going 5G, but it's at the very beginning. I don't think we have to rush into it. I think the price will be much more moderate. And by that time, the advertisement of why you should go from here to there or over there will be much more in the eyes of the customer. Right now, there will be people who get it just to be, I've got a sticker on my front door that says I'm 5G.
Yep.
So I think waiting is maybe the most financially prosperous or positive thing to do. But I don't think we got enough, as you say, on our plate.
Councilor Topaz, I couldn't agree with you more. It's a G thing. YOLO.
So
Go ahead, John.
I was going to comment that the city of Sandy has been working on this for a long time. They're one of the pioneers in the state of having a municipal broadband, and it's been wildly successful for them. They're on the map. People come locate there because of this, the predictable internet.
Exactly. And I disagree with all of you except John, because we need to go high tech, because that's what attracts people nowadays. That is exactly what attracts everybody nowadays. The one thing we didn't talk about in our urban renewal thing that was on the list of the original urban renewal was a office building down here with fiber in it for high-speed offices so that people from Portland can do all their work out here.
I'm not going to disagree with you, but when I look at the city as a whole and I look at our staff, which is phenomenally good at what they do, but they are overloaded, and we have a lot of projects. Right now, I think a police station since 1971, is probably a little more important and priority, and continuing waterfront redevelopment, continuing to serve our community with clean water and safe streets and stuff like that. We need to finish off the projects that we have, some of them. I'm going to agree with Jenny 100%. I'm not disagreeing with
Then
the
we'll
idea.
agree to disagree then.
The idea.
One of the
I like the idea as well, Keith, but I just think that it's going to take a little bit of time.
We are
quite a bit of time, really.
Well, our staff hasn't the ability to do this. It's all hiring somebody to do it.
And then don't we have some budgetary constraints as well? I mean, $7 million. Wow.
Well,
Some of the things we didn't talk about today, even related to the police department, is the opportunity zone and how that might play into funding something like a municipal broadband utility, or even a public-private partnership between a developer to build a police station.
How many people do you think have Comcast in this town?
95%.
So that would be 4,000 households then, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at $1,000 a year times 4,000, it's a good chunk of change. It's $4 million a year.
I don't.
Peop-
See, so I
Everybody
I don't,
out there,
I don't look at it more like that, and I don't think I look at it more like we're actually going to be offering a service that is going to be better. And I get that you're always looking at dollars and cents, but if that's what we're really going into it for, rather than serving our community with a higher speed, better service, is where
I've
our
been
heart
paying
should-
Comcast for several years
where
now,
our
and I
heart
would do
should
nothing
be.
better than to pay the city half the
where
bill
our-
than Comcast.
Well, so that's where.
You know, we talk about wanting to be high tech. As long as we have that ugly shadow of the mill, that's definitely not high tech. If we could make that a whole, we could start talking about high tech.
So here's what I'd like to do, Kathy. I'd like to put this discussion, if it's not too loaded for the July, we'll have a discussion on this a little bit further in the third week of July. But if it gets overloaded, it's coming off the agenda. Just broadband to kind of
More process.
Yeah, more process.
And I can engage with this other.
But for now, it's kind of the feel is just yes.
Yeah, I think John has a good point on dovetailing into other projects that we're looking at. Somehow, if we can dovetail broadband into police station and into other projects that we're working on, riverfront development, all kinds of things. I mean, there's so many balls up in the air that it seems to me like they could combine and dovetail together.
Once upon a time, wasn't there a fiber cable coming down Route 30 to Trojan? Or was that only proposed?
No, it happened.
So there is cable
There is
here
fiber.
rather than going across the river.
Yes. It goes to the fire station also,
So there is.
Courthouse.
and the courthouse, yeah.
So there is cable here.
Yes.
So-
And so we don't have to worry. I mean, that was the confusing thing about going across the river to cable.
So we'll continue. Tina, don't leave because I want to get a report from you. John, I know you still got a little bit more.
Okay, I'll just move on, but won't forget about it.
Sorry.
The build grant, the transportation grant that we were unsuccessful with last year, we're resubmitting that on July 15th. Coming today, we had representatives of Senator Merkley. Wyden's canceled at the last minute, and Bonamici's aides came out and toured the site, went over the information we have to date, and they're very excited about the project. And it sounds like they don't have all the Oregon applications in yet, but they last year championed ours as one of their top projects. We're hoping that continues this year, particularly that the two projects last year in Oregon got funded. So there's presumably more capacity for our otherwise very competitive project. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to Salem with the Jenny Dim Show to present the Campbell Park grant. We have an application invited to present a large grant application for improvements in Campbell Park, which would redo the sports courts, improve some drainage, parking capacity, and I think that's it. And then one other court, sports court. There's a court, three courts altogether. But
There's the two tennis courts, so rehabilitate one of those, convert another one into a multi-purpose sports court, and then create a new wetland meadow area. Increase the parking, improve the drainage. That was I think everything in the first phase.
But, excited about that, and we were successful last time we got to present, so we're hoping to keep that going. The food bank project, the community development block grant, $1.5 million project with the food bank. We've selected went through RFP proposal for architectural and engineering services, selected a architecture firm, a local firm, Columbia Andronimi, Lower Columbia Engineering it was very close between a couple firms, but they got the work, so kept that local. The lagoon, on our fact-finding mission to learn more about the lagoon repurposing, we have a work plan from our contractor that will start as early as next week, kind of laying out the locates, the testing, meeting with the drilling people and sampling. They'll mobilize on the 1st and be doing on the week of the 8th, they'll be doing drilling and sampling, installing monitoring wells, and that sort of thing. So, and I'm happy to share that if you'd like to see it. Staff recently met we've had a couple of roundtables over nuisance and nuisance abatements and the process and the conflicting languages in our code between the building side of how a nuisance might be processed versus the tall grass, the garbage in yards, that kind of thing. And a lot of those processes are been around in our code for a while. They have a component where the council is actually the one kind of declaring the nuisance, which is a little old school, frankly, that the more modern codes empower staff, the councils empower their staff to do that work. And when it elevates to a point where it's going to have a lien on it or some kind of, action that it comes back to the council either through the appeal process to the courts or the appeal process to the council, and looking for ways to work more efficient and effectively, because right now the process can be a little cumbersome when we identify a nuisance, have to wait a couple weeks to get on a council agenda, then go back and they give them some time to fix it, and the process plays out. So we've worked with the prosecutor and the staff members and come up with a solution that we need to have this rewrite that goes out. So unless there's any objection to that, you'll see a draft rewrite in the future. So I think that's it.
Okay, Tina.
So I wanted to just start off by thanking the police that are here during 13 Nights on the River. That's been a really positive impact for 13 Nights. And the new Hudson Garbage Green Initiative that they're doing with us to recycle as much as possible and to leave the area as spotless as possible. That's been working really well. I also want to thank Dave for being Johnny on the spot with any requests that we need to get 13 Nights up and going. And so far this year, it's about 30% higher than it has been in the past for audience, as well as donations, people making donations when they come in. So that's been really helpful to keep it all running and moving smoothly. We have started a couple of new initiatives to raise money for local charities that are just being on the street. One is called Checks Out for Children, and we hope to raise around $5,000 for Kiwanis, Rotary, Elks, and the food bank. And so far the response just in the first 20 minutes has been really good. And then we're working on, I know the mayor's Day in the Park is coming up this Saturday, and we're supposed to have great weather, so that's a good thing. And 4th of July, we have lots and lots of buckets out for people to donate, and Kiwanis came in with a check for $500, so I think you should know that they are saying thank you for probably the work that we do with all of the nonprofits in town, and they feel that 4th of July is especially cool for kids and learning about the history and honoring veterans as well as people in service. So we're looking forward to a full schedule with 4th of July, and it is all posted on discovercolumbiacounty.com, and I'm working with Judy and Steve and Mayor Scholl, as well as musicians and activities that are going on during the whole day. And it's looking like it's going to be a lot of fun. We're getting a good response so far to the tailgating. And I'm working with CERT on that, so it's all systems go, I think, for that. As well, Bobby over at Cuts Plus has opened a year-round Columbia County and St. Helens gift shop with Spirit of Halloween Town, and she told me yesterday she had 2 people stay overnight so that they could come to the gift shop in the morning and buy stuff from Frankfurt. So that's cool. So she is working on changing her store to accommodate that, as well as the art and wine walks that have been going on. And we had about twice as many people attend that as we did the first time. So I think that's it for right now. Does anyone have any questions? Okay.
On collection buckets, did you ever get the buckets we had in the
They're
store?
all out there. 100% of them are in action, collecting coins and saying thank you very much.
So you did find them?
All of them, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tina.
All right.
Thanks, Tina. Okay, council reports.
Mr. Mayor,
Oh,
can I have a
Mr. Jacob.
quick injunction?
It's our city planner, Jacob Gretchen.
I just heard some things that maybe some facts are a little sideways from some of the things the port talked about.
Mhm.
So I think it's a good idea to make sure we're all on the same page. So the lot line adjustment they talked about, I don't quite understand the funding mechanism with the state, but it was something unique and new. And in my discussions with the port planners, they felt like the guinea pig. And they tried to get answers from the state, and they didn't till the very end. And so it was kind of a surprise for them that this area associated with this instrument, which I can't remember, has to be assigned to whole subject property, not leased property. If the port had known that up front, they probably would have done something different, but they didn't. And so they kind of got caught off guard. And so when they come at the end and ask us, hey, we got this weird shape, that catches us off guard too. Has nothing to do with the school, has to do with Composites Universal, which is an excellent development in sight. Coincidentally, after the meeting that we had before when Port Commissioner Trapp was here, we actually met, I think that same week, with the port planner and a surveyor out on the site. And we had mentioned, your concerns about Scappoose getting all the attention. And we kind of talked about the Multnomah site, because it's kind of, nobody sees it. It's a perfect industrial property because it's surrounded by wetlands. And nobody sees how it's evolved over the many years. With the Ortpet building around 2010, that was a building that was crushed by a snowstorm. It was just a foundation. And then the one that's the subject of the lot line adjustment, which you talked about, is Composites Universal. Really nice facility. If you drive in there, you see nice new buildings and improved parking areas. And it's great to see that kind of investment. But that had nothing to do with a school that executive director of the port was talking about. And this is the first that I've heard of it, which is a little concerning because the property along McNulty Way is zoned heavy industrial, which doesn't allow schools, which puts me in an uncomfortable position.
There's 2 different places. They were completely different places, so there
Okay.
was some confusion. And he tried to clarify that. He goes, this is something different, and this trade school, they're still trying to recruit them. It's not a done deal yet.
But they don't have a site selected?
No.
Okay.
No,
I missed that then. Okay, good.
Yeah, it was. It was actually had to do with composites, I thought.
Yeah, it's 2 different things.
Yeah.
The composites
Okay.
is what you're talking
Yep.
about. This other thing, he goes, if you think we're not working on you, this is what we're working on.
Yeah.
And nothing's official. If you want to be part
Yeah,
of
and
that.
they want
Okay,
us to-
good. Well, then I'm getting clarification by coming down here
And they
too.
want us to actually help them pursue them too as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
just-
like, we are working for you, even though it doesn't make headlines. We
Yeah.
are working.
And
for
they
you.
are not a replacement for PCC, just so you know.
So when I start hear things, I like to make sure the council leaves these with the right information.
Yeah, if you weren't following very closely, it would have been easy to
Yeah,
get
okay.
twisted. So
Perfect.
Yep.
So that's why I came down here. Sorry to
No,
add
it's always
length to
good to
your
see you.
your
Very
meeting.
good. Always
Thanks
good
for
to see you.
being here.
Sure.
Always, Docker.
Yep.
All right, Councilor Lott.
So the mill had it shut down last week, and everything went very well. I was there 10 o'clock in the night when they turned the juice back on, and it all went smooth. So, and the two different entities got along, and everybody played good together. The only thing bad was they put some new poles in the parking lot that didn't get permits for. So, other than that, it was pretty good. CAT is having this grand opening for the.
Question on that though. I mean, how? I know I'm developing my own property. I have to get a permit for every little thing I do. How are they able to do stuff down there without building permit?
Well, I guess you're going to have to ask Jonathan that, I guess.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
It's the way they've been doing it for like 100 years, and it's going to have to
the
change.
old guard used to just let it happen because they were a huge tax contributor. Let's don't make two bones about it. And they paid about half the sewer over there.
Yeah, they went from being an owner to being a renter.
Yes.
It's a different deal.
Yeah, it's a totally different deal. It's apple and oranges.
So.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us know.
Yeah. So anyway, so the CAT, the new facility there at the CAT for the homeless shelter and the offices, they're having an open house Friday at 2:30.
Wow, it's that close to being done.
Oh yeah, it's all done.
Cool.
Yeah. Something else over at the mill. They actually had to replace more poles than they thought. There was a tree they were trying to trim so that it wouldn't fall on the pole, and they fell it on the pole. So, they had to put a couple new poles up for that. That was about the only glitch in it, but other than that, things are going good. So, guess that's it.
Obviously, it wasn't a local logger that did it.
No.
Councilor Carlson?
I don't like going after him very much. I just had a couple things, but we ran so long on things that I got a couple little distractions. The youth council had a good meeting this week, and I think we will have a student here tonight. Pretty sure it's going to be Liam, so we need to be prepared to accommodate Liam and get the chair out of the way for him before he comes.
Sure.
And he's excited about doing that. And it was a really, really great meeting, probably the best one we've had in a long time. We had a visit from the organization that is working on doing a drop center for at-risk young adults. I won't call them youth because it's ages 14 to 25. So it's more transitional, and he talked about scenarios in which this place would be, it's not for drugs, not for alcohol, not for any particular problem. It's for young people to have a safe place other than their parents. So a lot of times kids today are going through things, they need somebody to talk to, not mom. And so the presenter came and talked about this, and some of the kids shared stories and talked about sometimes I want to be able to speak honestly in a safe place and have somebody to help me with that. And these drop centers are run by mentors, so there are other young adults that have walked through these problems before. So it's somebody else that has gone on to being a mental health professional that has been homeless, that has dealt with addiction, that's going to say, this is how sometimes we do this. It's going to be more of a mentor, more of a friend role, as opposed to I'm a doctor with a code, I'm official, and you're not. And the kids seem to really respond to them and says, how can we help you? What can we do? So I look forward to more conversations with them. And not to be a buzzkill, but do we know what's happening with the flags out there?
Mm-hmm.
The last thing I heard was that Joan was out on a vacation or something last week, so she was supposed to come in Monday and take care of it, and we haven't heard anything.
Well, she did come in and pick up the flags.
Oh, that's the last one.
Okay, it looks still like in a flux state, and so that has me a little, I'm surprised we haven't had more conversation on social media about what is happening out there. Because to me, it looked nice in the way she described when she started, and then we had the windiest days of the summer as soon as she got in her car and left town. So I just wanted to make sure we.
And we did have some windy days,
windy
and they're clasped. You know, I don't understand how they.
They're grommets. I mean, they're.
Yeah, I mean they're locking clasps. Though.
The engineering doesn't have the strength needed to hold the whole thing up. They're just pulling out. And what they have to do is just run a string or a heavy line to hold them up and let the flags hang off the line.
Because the grommets aren't working.
Yeah, the grommets just pull out. They just do not have strength there.
Carabiners are strong enough. The grommets are not.
Yep.
So I just wanted to not see all of her effort kind of go for naught. But I'm very excited about Citizens Day this weekend. Super awesome. And then I think tomorrow is going to be interesting at 13 Nights because it's a battle of the two hobbits. And I'm just going to get out my Lord of the Rings card, see if I can find a hobbit. I don't think that's the kind of hobbit she means, but my coworkers at work says if I come down here there isn't a dwarf, I'm going to be mad. So I just thought a little 13 Nights humor. That's all I have.
Comment on the youth council? Matt, I don't know, would it maybe be better, because we don't televise the youth council, and I don't know whether we ever would or should, but I was just wondering, would they be more comfortable down at the rec center? Is the rec center open on Monday nights, or is that something that's possible?
Anything is possible. Just a matter of working out the time with Shauna, and I know during the summertime we get really busy, especially with the summer program going on, and then we have classes and everything going on sometimes in the evenings. But it's definitely something I can talk with Shauna about, planning that on a more regular basis if you guys want to do it at the rec center.
I was just thinking that because there's generally youth around there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So might give them a chance to look and see what they're doing and maybe participate more or something.
I've offered that building to them, and they like this room. But they have decided that July and August they will probably be only meeting once each month. They meet the Monday of our week, and because we're not meeting but once in July, and because kids are going to DC and field trips and vacations, that they're going to have kind of more of a invitational to bring a buddy and have ice cream in the park kind of thing. And this is something that they've really enjoyed the last couple of summers, is to just be down here and wherever and just have ice cream sandwiches and invite their families and do that thing, because these are kids that they're tired from the school year too, and they still want to meet, but they want to do something fun.
Okay. Anything else?
That was it.
Okay.
It just had to go back because it was here.
Councilor Topaz.
Have a question. It's about payment of money. I've attended 4 meetings in downtown Portland having to do with cleaning up the harbor. One was our executive session. One was the Superfund disposal. One was Portland Harbor Public Forum, and the other was the remediation by the Portland Harbor Community Coalition. I was wondering, could I get paid for mileage?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything further than 15 miles, I believe, is
You
what
can
we
get a
have.
form. There's a form to fill out.
Then there's-
Yeah, she's got to. Okay, that was the question. The library and the Arts Commission, they're having a go around looking for the next, in fact, interview for the next council position. So that's about all I have.
Oh, so they have an opening, they're looking for people?
They have an opening, and they have interviewees.
Oh, they have applicants?
Yes.
Okay.
They do.
They have several openings.
They have several openings?
Yes.
They've got a couple that just have gotten filled, and other openings that are coming up.
Okay. All right. Council President Morton.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a couple things. I want to piggyback on what the chief was talking about with youth. And I attended that national conference on youth and families. And we heard about the youth council, and we had youth councils from all over the country there. And the youth councils were actively involved in their commissions and committees throughout the city. Now, I've asked early on to have one of the youth come to our Parks Commission meeting because they could absolutely make a difference. They're part of decisions and insights of what can happen in the parks. I would really, again and again, I want to invite someone from the parks or from the youth commission to sit in on the Parks Commission. I ran that by the Parks Commission 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, and I don't know if I should say it anymore. But anyway, I'm somewhat disappointed. I was very encouraged by having a youth commissioner, one of the youth commissioners, sit in this chair here and report. But in his reporting, that doesn't have a lot of credence to being really involved and actively pursuing ideas, especially about parks and with the youth. Also, I think the same thing could work with the youth in the police and the youth in the Arts and Cultural Commission as well. The Library Committee, all sorts of avenues there, rather than and I like the idea of one person sitting here during our council meetings, but I'd like to see the Youth Commission expand a little bit into some real kinds of activities that they feel that they are making a difference. And I just wanted to say that before I give up on it. A couple things, Sue. I want to respond to your the parks plan, and my whole life has been around tennis. Ever since I was a kid, I competed in club activities in tennis. I ended up being a teaching pro in the summer months. I ended up being a coach, and I love that. I love that game. I'm encouraged that we're looking at a tennis facility, but the reason I said something about myself, this is going to be a surprise. I don't stand behind it, and the reason I'm not standing behind it is that pickleball has taken its place, and pickleball is so popular. However, the good thing is that pickleball can be played on a tennis court if there's striping, if there's lines, if there's badminton kinds of lines put in over the court, then we're fine. But whether we know it or not, we are in partnership with the school district in tennis, and we're in partnership not only from the rec department, but they have 6 courts that our public citizens use. And so in that sense, we're in partnership in 6 wonderful courts. Most times that you can drive by there, you'll see no one on them. And so I talked to Jen a little about that, but I just wanted to make it kind of put it out there. Okay, so one, you knew, and everyone else knows as well. Pickleball is absolutely a very popular sport with all ages and all abilities, and it's so user-friendly to learn. The learning curve is like way different than tennis. So I would encourage that. And what else did I have? Okay, in parks, Lynn Pettit volunteered to head up. In Parks Commission, each commissioner has a park that they report on. And so Lynn came in, she says she would like to report on the Dalton Lake Preserve as a nature park, the nature preserve. And she would like to do everything that she can to get that back, to get that out of ODOT's jurisdiction and into the city's jurisdiction, so that we allow the ODOT gives up their control of that that properties, and it was mitigated at one time. It is St. Helens property, but it was mitigated to ODOT at some time. And I thought we were close at one time, and it's kind of been put on the back burner for some time, but I would certainly like to let the council know that Lynn is going to do all she can to encourage a Friends of Dalton Lake Preserve to nurture and build, and along with that, get the control back into the city, if at all possible, from ODOT. She'll try as a citizens group to do that, and I was very encouraged by that. And on that, on the other hand, at our Parks Commission meeting, a citizen stepped forward and wants to form a Friends of the Botanical Gardens. And I thought, wow, this is really kind of interesting. It was an interesting meeting because people are starting to get more and more involved in friends groups, and I really like that. I think, now, I asked the Parks Commission to consider what a friends group is and what their parameters are, and they came up with somewhat of a definition. It's a loosely knit group of individuals who will volunteer and whatever. But I solely feel that the friends groups needs to report or is a segment of the Parks Commission rather than the council or whatever. So I see that as even being a loosely knit group who reports to the commission, so the city knows actually what's going on, and the Parks Commission can advise the city where to go. Not exactly where to go, or where to move forward to. Okay. What else did I have in parks? All the visits on the website of Sand Island. Wow. 3,000, I think 3,000 friends of that, or 3,000 members of that website. They're all 5-star hits on what's going on over at Sand Island. I haven't seen one negative. But anyway, that's moving on.
You haven't looked at the right site then.
Really? Are you on that one?
You need to be on 4Cs if you want to see some Sand Island negative comments.
What is it? What are they?
What site are you talking about?
Yeah, what site are you talking about?
Sand Island Marine Park.
The Facebook site?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's a Facebook, and what I went to was Sand Island. I did that just about, 45 minutes ago, just to see what was there. So I haven't gone to all the sites.
Yeah.
So any negative kinds of things?
Well, yeah, they think that they're clear cutting over there. They think that there's a number of rumors over there that we are. It's very ridiculous. If they really looked at and read the contract, which is available, they would see that stuff is not true. That you can go over there and use the docks for free. You can still go on the island for free. A bonus is you can actually get a shuttle ride over to the island free. The only difference is an overnight camp stay is $30 a night.
Yeah.
That's it.
We've opened it up to our citizens. We've opened it up to our public to use
More so
our
now
park.
than ever, but it's all negative on that site. So
Okay.
it's just a very loud minority that is always loud and always likes to rally the troops and get them involved and
I'd like to hear from them and our council and or at our Parks Commission meeting.
Hey, I got
and
a phone call from one of them, Doug, and I told him, listen, this has been going on for a year and a half. We had a public forum.
Yeah.
I mean, but no matter what we do, again, like this will be the third meeting on this rec program, and about a $2. This will be the third meeting that we're doing.
I know.
And when we go ahead, if we decide and we get good feedback, which probably we will, and I hope you show up. If you are opposed, show up to it. If you're for it, show up to it at the Lewitt Room Monday nights. But when we go ahead to maybe adopt this, there's going to be something that they secretly did this. So that's just the way it goes. Anything else to report? Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I do have one thing. I could save it tonight, but for tonight. But this is just an idea. Maybe I can elaborate on it a bit more tonight. When I came on the council, we had something that was accomplished in the 70s, and it was called the 2020 Vision Plan. And it was 20 years out, and nothing, it seems to me like nothing had ever been done with it. Maybe it was later than the 70s, maybe it was in the 80s, I'm not certain, but it was in place. And I'm suggesting that from our council goals, that we go through a process of looking 20 years ahead and sharing with the members in our community what the vision could be and what it is, and involve the people in our community with that visionary process. That way we all come into kind of a place of common vision, and I think that it's a good thing to do.
I think we had that done with Jensen. Eric Jensen has already vetted that process for us, and all we have to do is pull the trigger if we want to.
And
spend
can
that
we have
money.
a public forum on that then, and see how, basically see how the public feels about that? But I think it needs to get out there more.
We did get a proposal from Jensen Strategies about, for the goals, and then also a strategic action plan, kind of and like a 20-year look. And
okay.
So we have it on the shelf.
Well, I think it needs to get out off the shelf and into our.
Need to budget for it. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is 2020. I mean, it's just around the corner for sure.
So
Okay,
we're going to call it the 2030.
2040.
Is that it, Doug?
That's it, thanks.
Okay, all right. Of course, we got Citizens Day in the park coming up. That is a city event. It has grown quite a bit. Got a number of sponsors, people that continue to step up in the community, have for the last 3 years, and they are listed on the flyer. So I'm not going to try naming them all because I'll leave one out. And I was smart enough not to do that. So that is this Saturday, starting at 11 o'clock. Hamburger, come out and have a free hamburger or hot dog. About 12:30 is when we'll start serving food.
Our job the same
it is our job to cook the burgers and hot dogs. So we'll have a couple barbecuers running. It highlights the 20-year anniversary of the skate park. I know that there is a website out there for, I think through Barlow Bike, or maybe it's one that Lisa started, for donations towards future grant possibilities, matching grant possibilities. It's kind of frustrating because Lisa Brooks showed up here and I kind of coordinated this with them, and all of a sudden nobody's really around. So,
Are we having birthday cake?
Something that maybe we should. Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Why don't we buy a cake?
How about bunch of those Costco cakes, or maybe have Safeway make a
full sheet cake. Happy.
How many people are there each year?
I don't know. I was just wondering if we can have somebody pick up a full sheet from. Does Safeway do full sheets out there?
I think so.
Do they do imaging? Well, you don't have to do imaging. Just say happy birthday skate park, I guess.
They decorate.
Well,
that'd be fine.
I thought Jordan Barlow was kind of the point person.
Kind of. And I think they're going to have some people on attendance, but I think they're on vacation on that weekend. So, yes, this weekend. Yes, this weekend.
Well, and you have a car show this year, which is an
We-
addition.
No, car show's always been. We have car show, fire department, National Guard. There'll be plenty of stuff for people to do. We have the new addition is a couple bands later in the afternoon, playing for free, local bands. So that's good. So that's going on this weekend. Yes, great job with the highway out there. You know, We had talked about maybe even that center section. I thought with all them juniper.
Yeah, we want to get some
Sure.
sort of a plan put
Yep.
together, but
Because that will be the main focal point, and I do believe that does have a sprinkler system in that.
that's the only
of the
section that does
Yep.
have a sprinkler system.
So there's, and it's probably not operable because the juniper have grown over some of the sprinklers. Guarantee you.
That could be true.
There are
I think
some-
I think
there
that
are.
they've been
I know the way
checking
juniper.
into that, but
I know the way juniper grow.
yeah.
Remind everyone when the Citizens Day starts, when it's kicked.
11 o'clock.
Got it.
Yep. So be there. It's going to be a good time for all. There was something else as in the report. Well, I guess, 4th of July is coming up. We might as well start talking about that. We're not going to have a council meeting. So that's always a great time. Tina shared a little bit, but throughout the day, bell ringings and veterans and garbage can painting, arts and cultural. There's a lot of stuff going on. So look forward to this time of year. It's my favorite time of the year. So that's all I got to report. I'll think of something later for tonight. So with that, we're adjourned.
No hearings?
We do.
We do have a special, we don't need to go into executive for anything? So we have a hearing at 6:30. 6? Doug, you get that? 6:30?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're having executive session here right now, right?
No. Nope. We're done.